Good evening. It is 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, December 18th, 2025, and I'm calling to order the meeting of the Arlington School Committee. Tonight's meeting is being conducted in person. We have one member who will be coming a little bit later, and the meeting is being simultaneously rebroadcast on ACMi, and it is being recorded. First, we're going to begin with public comment. Stephanie Ford is first, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Stephanie Ford. I live at 12 Lockland Ave, and I'm here speaking about policy for CPAC and LPAC, but I'm speaking as an individual and not representing those groups. I believe very soon, Mr. Schlickman may have the date already, but that the Policy Procedure Subcommittee will be meeting very soon about the addition of the KBG policy, revising the LPAC and CPAC policy and the relationship with the school committees. I've spoken a few times about House Bill 504. I'll circle back to that, but I want to bring up the conversation at the last school committee meeting about the Nature's Classroom trip. And as it was reported, 16% of students did not go on that trip. And I really appreciate, I believe it was Ms. Gittleson who said, why not? Why did these kids not go? And in that conversation, with the school committee at the table, with the administrators at the table, with every principal in the district in the room, no one had very much to say about that. Someone said kids had sports, someone said their parents didn't want them to go, but out in the community, out on Zoom, out in parents' conversations with each other, parents were virtually screaming because there's turmoil about this trip every year, and there's a lot of conversation about this trip. And sorry, I had to do a lot of cutting. So being able to have someone at the table who could answer that question in real time and say, people from CPAC, families with disabilities didn't go on this trip for these reasons. And people from the MLPAC who said, our families didn't have materials available in our language and we weren't able to communicate about this trip. And that information can come back as feedback, but it would be so helpful and so cost savings and so friendly to have that information at the table in real time. So the policies that are on the table, the KBG policy, I think, is going to be rubber stamped and move forward that says, instead of communicating only with school administrators, that these parent advisory committees will be communicating more regularly directly with the school committee. House Bill 504 would go a step further to say these people actually get a seat at the table to communicate in real time. Little clunky here. Dr. Janker actually said something extremely practical to me once that I think is very applicable. I'm going to run out of time. I don't completely agree, but as a first order solution, I think it's absolutely brilliant. He said, everyone's accommodations are pretty much the same. And while I don't think that's entirely true, I do think everyone's needs are the same. And the thing that we can do for everyone is to listen, to ask them what they need, and to meet their needs together in a solution that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ford. Ms. Miller, Sharon Miller.
My name is Cheryl Miller. I live at 10 Thesda Street. I'm an autistic parent of 2 kids with disabilities in Arlington. I hate public speaking, but I've come before this body many times over the past few years to speak. I hate writing, but I've spent many hours writing, poring over your own documents, crafting arguments, trying to persuade you with all the facts. I hate giving up privacy, but I've poured out my heart in public, laying out completely preventable harm done to my children, the impact on our family, trying to persuade you all with our humanity. I've been doing this for years. It has not made the tiniest shred of difference. And so I can only come to the conclusion that you don't want to know. Dr. Homan says all the right things. She says exactly what you want to hear. Hell, she says what I want to hear. But it isn't true. I wish it was. I listened to Dr. Homan say in a community relations subcommittee meeting that the school committee were hearing difficult stories during chats with the public, and she wanted to be able to help those people. But I've written to her countless times asking for help, and she wouldn't help. I listened to Dr. Homan say in a budget subcommittee meeting that students are only sent out of district when it is unavoidable. But she knows that my child is out of district, not because of her intrinsic needs, but because she regressed after being failed for years by Arlington Special Education. I listened to all 10 principals paint an incredibly rosy picture of the district. Again, just what you want to hear. But it bore no resemblance to the experience we're having. To give just a couple of examples, Gibbs and AHS both mentioned gains on chronic absenteeism, but Addison, where my son is chronically absent due to special education failures, conveniently omitted any mention of chronic absenteeism whatsoever. And the Gibbs principal, as Stephanie mentioned, went on and on about how wonderful Nature's Classroom is, but failed to say, even when asked, that students with disabilities disproportionately miss out on that wonderful experience. What else are you being told that isn't true? Do you want to know? If so, then reach out directly to families in the focal groups to find the experiences that APS keeps carefully out of the light. If not, then go ahead and keep living in the appealing, comforting, misleading picture Dr. Homan is painting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I want to acknowledge our AA rep is here this evening, Julie Keys.
Hi.
Nice to see you. Do you want any updates you want to share?
It's almost break.
There you go.
3 more days.
There you go. Kids are ready, teachers are ready. And we do not have any student representatives this evening. So, next order of business, Dr. Homan is asked to have the HCI conversation first. And so we're going to call up Dr. Janger and
Ms. Cooney.
Ms. Cooney. Okay, there you are. Great. Come on up.
We also have with us Leon Bissett and Aaron Blaine.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Just make sure you speak into the microphone.
Sure.
Okay.
And nod towards me when you're ready for a slide switch, if I don't switch it.
So I'll admit that when I saw that they were here, I thought I wasn't presenting, and I realized I was still for you. Hang on. Oh, you don't have the slides up on the back wall anymore. Hang on, I gotta look at them.
I'll contextualize while you get set up. Part of why I asked if that we could take this out of order is so that it enables the committee. I spoke with Mr. Thielman ahead of the meeting. It is indicated in the program of studies that in ELA for 10th grade will be heterogeneous next year. The committee can vote to approve by voting the program of studies. They could vote to amend the program of studies if there was not a desire to move forward with HGI, or it could be voted entirely on its own. For context, we voted for a pilot and then to keep the pilot moving. And the proposal tonight will be for it to stay in that same subject area, but to move to that next grade level for continuity of experience for the kids and other reasons that I know the team will articulate. But it might make the most sense to vote it in with the program of studies, given that it's denoted that way there for the sake of simplicity. But we have the ability either way if we do it in this order, which is why I had to take it out of order. You ready to go?
Yep.
All right.
So my job in this presentation is to contextualize how we got here. I've presented on this a number of times, so bear with me if I just go very quickly. If you guys want to go back and revisit any of the data, I think, which you've all seen before, I will go back through that. But if you look at the historical timeline, this project or initiative started shortly after the pandemic, when we had looked at heterogeneous grouping in lower grades, and a lot of teachers had found a high degree of success. And we saw moderate support in the community for it and strong support amongst the staff. So we had a study group, parents, teachers, students, and community members who worked for a year studying different kinds of grouping models that were more inclusive, and made a determination to focus on a pilot in English 9. That pilot in English 9 is now 3 years old. We're in our 4th year. And we've been tracking the progress on a number of different things. So on honors level participation, student grades, measures of classroom climate and culture, and then ongoing enrollment in honors and ongoing achievement amongst English students. So going down to the next slide. This is most of what I'll talk about, and then we'll just look at the pictures. As a summary of sort of that 3 years of progress, what we've seen is very consistently positive or neutral outcomes for those students. So in English 9, the percentage of students in the class opting for honors level curriculum is up by around 26% over the comparison years. Black and Hispanic representation in honors participation is also up around 25%. IEP representation by about 19%. And that's 19% of the class. So we were originally looking at saying, well, it went from about 50% to about 75%, so that's a 50% increase. But that's confusing. So just to make clear that that's 26% more of the class, so about 100 students. And then what you see is the follow-on effects, which is that when you have students in that cohort getting to junior year in the AP, we have an increase of about 5 to 15%, depending on how we count. And then AP language average scores are actually up in that cohort, and the percentage of students getting a 3 or more is at a remarkable 94%. And I'll just say it now, there's no way we're going to keep that level consistently. That's an extremely high percentage, but it's a significant jump over previous years. And then our MCAS results, as you see, are, again, slightly up. And then if you slide down, this slide has been in every presentation we've done since the pilot, because those are the things that we were anchoring our conversation in, that we were hoping would be at least the same and hopefully better. And as you can see, they're all better. And then if you go down 2 more slides, you can see that's the participation rates map. So the line is where students have begun participating. Those 3 groups are students on IEPs is the bottom, Black and Hispanic students is the blue line, and then the overall participation is the top line. And then sliding down through the breakout numbers, you can go down to the picture of grades. Slide 10. And so then again, what you see is that even though we have this higher percentage of students opting for more challenging curriculum, the grades are flat or trending slightly upwards. And then sliding down again to the panorama survey. So that's the student experience. Now that's an overwhelmingly pretty positive experience in the English 9 classes. And again, it remains, as you go into the participation years, it's either trending upwards or level. And so that leads us, again, going quickly through the next slides, you see that that continues on into the sophomore year. And then you see this consistent increase. And for, the sake of transparency and honesty, only the far right-hand column there is honors and AP participation in the participating cohort. So you can see we have a rising trend even before. But what we do see is that cohort continues to mirror that trend, that it's having a positive or neutral effect. And then if you slide down to the next one, 1, 2, 3. Oh, the up one. That is the percentage of students earning a 3 or more on the cohort. And so that blue column there, which is significantly higher, is the participating cohort. Again, going down through MCAS scores, you can see that we have lines trending upward, so that the cohort of students who participated are now exceeding our post-COVID, our pre-COVID scores, and are generally positive again. Dr. Holman has done some pretty complicated analysis on this, which I can't do justice. But the bottom line is, if we get down to slide number 23.
I don't know I don't have numbers here.
There you
Help
go,
me
that's
out.
the one.
This one? Okay.
Is that if you characterize what we've seen, right? We've seen access expand, we've seen improvements in equity, so closing gaps in participation, we've seen maintained levels of participation and achievement, we've seen the pipeline strengthen going forward, we've seen sustained rigor, continuing positive classroom experience, and it's important to note, it's actually easier to schedule. It is a significant improvement on scheduling if everybody in the 9th grade is scheduled for the same class. Makes it easier to provide special education services. It makes it easier to provide less heavily impacted classes and more equitable experiences across the school. So, with that, I pass it on to Christina.
Hi. So this brings us to our proposed next step in collaboration with the entire high school English department. We would like to extend our heterogeneous grouping to 10th grade English next school year, in school year 26-27. Within this, we would model this after the 9th grade, so students would choose honors or advanced learning, A-level, within their classes. We would be looking at their transcript and GPA weight reflecting the level that's chosen. And the honors work would entail a higher level of complexity, sophistication, consistency, and independence, and expectations, and work on all standards. And I think one of the things that maybe has been confusing is, and that Dr. Jenger and I have received questions about, is whether or not the standards would change. And we want to be clear that with this expansion, this proposed expansion, that students would continue to cover the same content and it would be aligned to the exact same standards, and this is not changing. And it's also important to note here, we think, before I sort of go into sort of next steps, is that when you look at the English language arts frameworks in Massachusetts, the 9th grade and the 10th grade standards are bundled, which means they are very similar. And we're already sort of looking at, like, how do you extend this? What does it look like as a 9th grader? What does it look like as a 10th grader? And that's work that we're consistently talking about and examining. Next slide, please. So last week on Wednesday night, Dr. Jenger and I held a caregiver webinar with families. We advertised in grades 7 through 12. Both in the high school newsletter, and then also we sent an email blast out to families and caregivers. And within this, we also invited, through a Google form, some feedback around how children and our students were experiencing heterogeneous grouping. In total, we had 19 participants. And we received 11 comments total. We received 9 comments prior to the webinar, and then we let families know that we're on the webinar that we would reopen the form, which we did, and we received 11 comments total. So some of the themes that I pulled out from those comments, because there was a lot of overlap, you can see here. We have some families and caregivers and students who are thrilled that we would like to extend this to 10th grade, and others who wanted to just acknowledge that they recognize that we might be hearing some feedback around challenge, particularly for students at the honors level, and they wanted to just let me know that they feel like their child has been very appropriately challenged in this 9th grade structure. Some themes that emerged that we need to consider as a department to refine and talk more about and think more about. We did hear within the 11 comments some asks around continuing to build our capacity to provide appropriate and rigorous extension activities for students opting for honors. And there was a lot of question, not necessarily personal experience, but there was a lot of question around what are our plans to meet the needs of a wide continuum of skill levels. And there was some worry around how would heterogeneous grouping affect students in the long term in terms of AP scores and also in terms of college admissions. So those were some of the themes that came up. But we also decided as a department that it was really important to get some feedback from our students who actually have lived and breathed heterogeneous grouping and to make sure that their voice was a part of this process as well. And so you can see here, we have some aspects here that were raised that were challenging. Students had voiced that sometimes it was hard to figure out what they needed to do to fully complete an assignment. So that's something that we will also continue to think about and refine. One student said, I often did not want to do the work assigned for H level, and I only wanted to do the one for A, so it kind of made me resent taking H. Students also voiced, we had a student answer this for whom English was not their first language, and they voiced that being with people who knew the language better than I did was beneficial. It also made me nervous to raise my hand in class as I was afraid of making a mistake in front of my classmates. Little by little, these challenges were overcome as I built up my confidence in the class and was able to work out any classwork problems comfortably and confidently. And one student voiced that the pace moved more slowly than they would have wanted for an honors class. So those were some of the challenges that emerged. Next slide, please. But aspects, and then we also asked students about the aspects of heterogeneous grouping that they valued. And you can see here, students really value having the opportunity to work with all different types of students, and that they felt like a heterogeneous class, a heterogeneous grouping really helped to reduce stigma between honors and A-level classes, and also created an environment that felt more inclusive and collaborative. And that having more people with more diverse perspectives to discuss topics with allowed for people to benefit from having deeper and richer conversations. And we do, I think it's important to note here, allow for students at the start of second semester to switch their level based on, they self-select their level after a couple of weeks at the beginning of the school year, and then they have the opportunity to switch that level midway through the year. And so you can see that a student raised that as that being a benefit. And then finally, a student shared that they could see the contrast between A-level and H-level work. And they also voiced that switching between A and H without changing their schedule was something that they found really beneficial. Next slide. Perfect. So we have been talking a lot around how to prepare for this experience, because what we know is that in other districts have not yet been as successful as we have been in Arlington in getting this model sort of up and running. And so for the past 2 years, we really have been working on building our expertise in this area. We currently have a heterogeneous grouping grade 10 committee that is run by Erin and Liana, who are here with me tonight. We also do ongoing planning through our department meetings where we work in grade level teams that we call professional learning communities, where we really dig into this work and we're really thinking about core texts and also thinking about consistency around rigor. We did offer our caregiver webinar last week, and then we're also planning to do a spring planning release day where we're going to be having some consultant support. And I have been in touch with Kim Marshall, who writes the Marshall memo, and also came in and helped with our 9th grade when they were beginning this work, and he is going to come back in March to help our team with that piece. The 10th grade team will also have a summer planning week, and next year we will also have supports in place for release time to really dig in and do that planning to ensure high degrees of rigor, consistency, and collaboration across so that we can offer equity of experience for all of our students. Next slide, please. So I'm going to ask Erin and Liana, who are here, to talk a little bit about some of the work that they've been doing with the 10th grade team in preparation for this.
Hi, I'm Erin McLean. I'm one of the 10th grade teachers. I also teach 11th grade and 12th grade here at Arlington High School. So we've been working for the past 2 years very consistently and concertedly, but we've been working for a lot longer thinking about this because this has been in the back of our mind since the 9th grade piloted this almost 4 years ago at this point. And we spend our time in meetings regularly with the 10th grade team, defining expectations for higher level learning, so developing rubrics, materials, activities, and assessments as a 10th grade team to make sure that we have room in those for both A-level and honors level work. We also have been working on setting clear, calibrated expectations for what it means, what does honors work look like, looking at student models, looking at student samples, and creating actionable materials that we can put into our practice right away.
Hi, I'm Liana Bassett. I'm also a 10th grade English teacher and 12th grade here as well. So thinking about what kind of materials we've actually been putting together, the 12th grade English classes that are not AP have been heterogeneous for as long as I've been here, which is like 12 years. So this is these are things that we've been doing, and so it's been nice to be able to do that work for the 10th grade as well, thinking about kind of adjusting, being really explicit about what our expectations are. I think in many ways I'm able to, we will be able to be even more rigorous and clear with our expectations when we're saying, this is the expectation if you're taking the class for honors level, and this is the expectation that everyone is meant to meet. Thinking about just some examples, like we already use a lot of different scaffolds, like graphic organizers, sentence frames, and things like that. But thinking about what this would actually look like in the classroom, we have been talking recently about what this might look like on an actual assignment. So I know the 9th grade already does this, but we're thinking about what that looks like in 10th grade. Some examples would be if we're looking at a claims, like coming up with a thesis statement. We can go through and say, okay, this is the expectation that everyone has. For example, everyone's claim should be supportable with evidence and universal. But if you're taking the class at the honors level, you want to try to go a little bit deeper and make sure it's particularly precise and arguable. Like one could reasonably argue against this. We want all students to be working toward that standard. But then we will show students, okay, this is what meeting the expectation looks like at the honors level. This is what it looks like at A level, and this is what exceeds looks like for everyone. And I've been, since I teach both regular co-taught and honors 10th grade, I've been trying this year to be very explicit with students, and I will give all my students the same assignment sheet, and on that assignment sheet it will say, if you're taking the class at honors level, this is the expectation. And so I explained to my A-level students, I know this isn't an honors level class, but if you're thinking about taking honors next year, or if you want to think about how to exceed expectations, this is a great way to do it. And it's very clear for students. And then I can also show my honors classes, this is the expectation for you, and this is why it's more sophisticated. And this is like, if you're not there yet, this is how I can help you get there. So we've been trying to be really explicit this year, kind of working toward heterogeneous teaching. And yeah, we have several examples of what that can look like in a writing piece, but we're also even talking recently about in a conversation, what would that look like? And something I did with my seniors recently was I told students that if they're taking the class, everyone in the class was, to meet expectations, everyone in the class should build on or challenge a partner's idea and provide at least one specific example from the text. But if you're also taking the class for honors level, you should think about also asking a follow-up question, because that's a more sophisticated skill, right? Like listening to someone and then coming up with a question to kind of push the conversation in a more interesting direction. So those are just a few examples. I know it can be hard just thinking abstractly about what this might look like, but these are the kind of conversations that we're having all of the time and that we have been thinking about for a long time and look forward to continue doing, hopefully.
So similar to what we currently do in the 9th grade with heterogeneous grouping, this is not something that we would ask to or propose without having a data plan in place for how we would track this over time to ensure that it was supporting all students. So we would be looking for equal or better outcomes by level and demographic group for honors level participation, student grades, panorama, some kind of a survey that looks at expectations, relationships, and belonging, enrollment in honors and AP, and then achievement and MCAS scores. So we look over time. So we're hoping to move forward with this after deliberation, and I just want to also thank Liana and Aaron for being here, and then also we have an extraordinary English department here at Arlington High School, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that we work as a community. It is the most collaborative team that I have worked with, my whole department, 6 through 12. But on this particular proposal, there are a lot of people at home tonight, I am sure, watching this, and I just want to ensure that I'm lifting their work, too.
Thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive presentation. I'm going to let school committee members make comments, ask questions. Does anyone, Ms. Exton?
I get to be the doctor today?
Yeah. I know. I was doing so well.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I mostly just have comments. So when I think about this, I continually go back to this piece of what are we looking for, these equal or better outcomes. And I think that the evidence here shows that you have achieved equal or better outcomes in 9th grade heterogeneous English. And so I appreciate the interest to move on to 10th grade. I also appreciate how responsive you all have been to the feedback that you've received from the community, from the school committee, getting caregiver feedback, bringing those specific student anecdotes was really helpful. I think that your examples of what this looks like with students is really helpful. I know that that's been something that's been challenging for people to tease apart and understand. So I appreciate all of that, the way that you've all responded to the feedback that we've given. I think it's really important, something that stood out to me you talked a little bit more about it at our subcommittee meeting, is this idea of how scheduling and balancing the classes is going to be easier if there are heterogeneous 10th grade English classes, and that students in our focal groups are essentially going to have their needs better met because you're going to be able to have balanced classes that do not have too many students on IEPs, and that was really compelling for me, not that I needed to be more convinced, but I think it's important to mention that. And I also, just looking at the data and the increase in students on IEPs who are participating in honors, I think that that's really significant. I would love to see that number grow, but I think it's notable. So I just wanted to share all of my thoughts and appreciate all of the work that you all have done, and I look forward to supporting this in whatever way the vote goes. Thank you.
I think we're just going to include it in the main,
Okay.
the main vote. We're not gonna have a separate vote, unless somebody wants to. Mr. Cardin?
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. One of the things you mentioned as an extension activity is independent reading. And when we were talking about 9th grade, the 9th grade pilot, it was revealed that the books being read in honors and A-level were the same. Is that also true for 10th grade? So
That
for
is
the
correct.
independent reading, I don't know if you have that now as part of your classes, or this would be implemented for the pilot. What does that look like? How are they evaluated on that? What's the assignments related to that?
Yep.
So independent reading is something that we already do in, I think, all of our grade levels. I can speak to the 3 levels that I teach, and it can look a little different. Our goal for independent reading is to encourage students to delve into their own interests. Sometimes there's an assigned reading list based on something that we're doing. So for example, I have a sophomore year banned book reading project where students are to read a book of their choice that has been banned or challenged at all, anytime, anywhere. So we partner with Stacy Kitsis in the Media Center. We do a presentation on banned books and what does that mean, and they do a little bit of research on that. They choose a book. And then there's an activity that they do during reading that book. And then there's a project that they do that involves them considering that the book that they read and considering the bans and challenges and thinking about kind of their pitch. So it's something like that where it's a project where they have some flexibility and some choice, and we want them to have some freedom to explore something that they maybe wouldn't explore on their own naturally, like over the summer, but also something that could be complementary to a text that we teach. Within that assignment, for example, there can be differentiation between levels and expectations, how deep they're going in terms of their thinking, what thematic connections they're making, kind of how they're synthesizing both the sources about the banned or challenged books and the book itself, and the level to which they're situating it in a broader context or thinking about their pitch and crafting it. So there's different ways to do that, and that's just one example. But I think, do you want to say anything else?
Yeah, I guess one other, Erin covered it very well, but one thing, like I'm doing a little mini unit on choice reading right now, and just one example of a way I'm differentiating the final assignment, which is just expanding one of their choice reading prompts, which is, there are lots of options. It's basically trying to get students to engage with a text that they want to read on their own in a way that feels good for them. They're analytical and creative options. But one just very small example is students taking the class at the honors level. I'm requiring them to say something about the author's craft in their analysis, whereas that is not a requirement for A-level, but it's put out there as like, hey, this is a way for you to improve and do something a little bit more complex. So that's just one small example.
Okay, so a follow-up to that, as far as selecting the books, though, would you, for example, make them honor students select a book that does demonstrate a lot of craft in the writing, or is that sort of not part of the process?
I don't know. I feel like depending on the goal of our independent reading assignment, if we want students to be exposed to a particular type of craft, there might be an honors list versus an A-level list, or like these books cover both levels. But since we have like the core texts that anchor our course, that everybody reads, both honors and A-level reading the same text, the independent reading is really to keep them excited and keep them reading, keep them exposed to different things, other than what we're reading in class. Graphic novels, novels in verse, those are often on the table for independent reading to kind of help them explore other genres, additionally, beyond what we have in class.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Allison-Ampe?
So I hadn't realized that we were here until this kind of came up here. I've been busy with other stuff. And as I'm thinking about it, my concern, so I agree, you've got all the outcomes that you've said for ninth grade, and I'm not disagreeing that we should continue doing ninth grade. But my concerns for going into 10th grade kind of build on the concerns I've heard from parents in ninth grade, where they feel that their student isn't being adequately challenged. And I worry about having 2 years of this in a row. And part of it was I was trying to understand, so what's the difference? And I found something which is how the Common App defines honors versus regular classes, when you're having to fill out what classes you're taking for things, and also found some other websites which were talking about it, and they're talking about having material in greater depth, faster pace, going deeper into subject matter, requiring more effort from students, digesting larger amounts of information in a quick time frame, understanding and analyzing more complicated aspects of subject matter. And my concern is that, at least so far what I've heard, both for the ninth grade and for the 10th grade, is the place that the differentiation is happening is really kind of at the end. They're not getting any greater depth of material or faster your pace is the same, the material's the same. I mean, yes, they may be reading some other stuff, but I'm just, I'm still concerned that we have heard from a number of parents who are concerned, who were initially concerned. We've heard of people during this time that just feel their students aren't being challenged. And I am not questioning the benefits to, say, the focal groups that this would bring, but I'm worried at what cost.
Do you want to
So-
comment at all?
Yeah, I would like to leave it to the teachers to describe how this works in class. But if we go to the 12th slide, so one, if you look at this question about rigorous expectations, and you look at the student experience survey on Panorama, what you'll see, the blue line, right, is people's responses around rigorous expectations. And you'll see that they were flat from the first year and have risen since that first year. And one of the challenges I have about talking about rigor in general with children and adults, I have my parent coffees, and most of my parent coffees are attended by ninth grade parents. And in those ninth grade parent meetings, English 9 doesn't usually come up, but I always bring it up. Because one of my questions has been this question about rigor. And sometimes parents will say, you know, I wonder whether my kid is being challenged. And then the question for me is always, do you wonder whether they're being challenged in modern world history? And they say yes. And what about physical science? The answer is yes. Right? And so there are students, right, of the 80% or so who are reporting that they're, you know, extremely or very positive about rigorous expectations. That means there are 20% that are somewhat or not, right? There are some students who don't feel challenged by the content. But the question that we have to ask in whether or not we're going to move this forward is whether that is a difference because of the format of the class. And our evidence is pretty strong that it's not, right? That the general rigorous expectations are very high in English 9. They continue to be very high, if not higher, since we went to heterogeneous grouping. We get comparable results in 10th grade, but there's no evidence at all that while that is a concern, while there are some people who say, my kid's not feeling challenged, there is no evidence that that's not happening in the same way in English 9. And I think you guys can probably speak to sort of the way in which those classes are challenging or not challenging in that rigorous experience. So I'll hand it to you.
Can I ask a clarifying question? What is the measure, I guess, that students are using to report feeling challenged or not challenged? Is it in the workload? Is it in the sophistication of thinking? Is it in the sophistication in writing? Do you have a sense of that?
I'm hearing, so I'm not directly communicating with
Sure.
the students. I'm hearing secondhand from parents about the child not being challenged by the assignment, that it's too easy.
So the level of
Yes.
the assignment. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you. I think the work that we have been doing, and we've been collaborating a lot with the ninth grade, we've been really focused on, we have this 10th grade anchor document that talks about standards and talks about what does, approaching, meeting, exceeding expectations look like in each of our major categories. And we've been tailoring our assignments to follow that and be aligned with that. Honor students are expected to have sophistication, independence, and consistency throughout. And I believe that we offered those opportunities in both one-on-one interactions with them when we're conferencing with writing and we're saying, you can go further with that. Take this a step further. Consider this in a different way. Can you weave in a critical lens here and think about a different perspective versus an A-level student who maybe is getting more supports in the form of a graphic organizer where they are working on specifically maybe talking about a theme, but not doing any of that more sophisticated thinking. I think that with differentiation within a class, we do this anyway at leveled classes because not all honor students look the same and not all A-level students look the same. So we're constantly, and like, it's like a dance that we're doing as teachers to navigate and position students in a place where they are challenged. And I feel that because we've done so much collaborative work with aligning and grounding our work in these standards, we have a lot of resources in our tool belt to help kind of push students out of their comfort zone where they need to be, whatever level they're at. So I don't know if you have anything else to say, but I'm not sure if that responds fully to your question, but
Wait a minute, Dr. Holman.
yeah, sorry, okay.
So I want to call on Dr. Holman and then Ms. Keys.
Okay.
But thank you.
Yep,
for
thank
that.
you.
That was helpful. Go ahead.
Remind me, this year's seniors were in the first
Yes.
group, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I also, what I want to build on what Matthew was just talking about, what Dr. Jager was just talking about. We have disaggregated in our outcomes so that we can see with clarity for a cohort whether or not we saw any change for students in a focal group or outside of a focal group. Again, with that standard of maintain or go up is our goal. Particularly for the students who are not in the focal group. We want to see the gap close, essentially. This is the cohort outcomes on ELA meets exceeds for the class of 2026. And it's all their testing years. You can see there's a gap here because they didn't test in 9th grade. And from 8th to 9th, the students with IEPs had a dramatic improvement. But in ELA, our students without IEPs also had significant improvement. And so if we're seeing that achievement is not only not going down, but is going up in multiple cohorts across time. And I would also point out that what you're seeing here too is achievement after a year of being redistributed back into groups. So like we can't draw a straight line here. It's hard to know whether what we've shifted, and we've shifted several things, not just this, is having an impact. We would probably know more doing this in 10th grade, what kind of impact this is really having, because then you're isolating it a little bit more from how we're doing some of the other 9th and 10th grade classes. So we would continue to track some of that data. But at the very least, we're seeing achievement improve, not only for our subgroups at a dramatic level, but for our students who are not in an identified focal group as well. And that's gap closing. That's what you want to see in achievement outcomes. And so I just wanted to point that out from a cohort level too, because when you look at cohort, you're looking at same students over time, as opposed to year over year, which can kind of hide what you're seeing in the outcomes. Sorry.
I just have 2 points I want to make
Yep.
on challenge from a teacher perspective. One is that there's an awful lot of challenge being provided that kids aren't taking advantage of. And that's it. Just because the kid's not taking advantage of it, doing that second step, going back and doing the revision, doesn't mean it's not there. The second is a lot of our kids define challenge as it was hard and I couldn't do it, but then I figured out how to do it and I overcame it. And they're not seeing, I wrote an essay, I sat with my teacher, I talked about how I could incorporate a different tone of voice, and then I went back and revised it and I made it better as challenge. Because they're engaged in it, they're interested in it, it's fun for them to do, they're finding success at the end of it, but it wasn't so hard they didn't know how to continue and then they had to get help and figure it out. And I think that sometimes, because something's enjoyable and feels easy, they think it's not challenging, but the challenge is like you're able to do something harder that you couldn't do yesterday, right? So I think that that word challenge, you know, a parent doesn't see their kids sitting at the kitchen table stuck on homework for 6 hours at night, and they're like, my kid's not challenged. They never have homework. But the quality of work they're doing is constantly improving.
Doctor,
Just to speak to your point about the cohort stuff, or how things have changed over time. So the meeting and exceeding is the same or going up, but the number in meeting is increasing, and the number in exceeding has been decreasing somewhat over time. It's slide 20.
Those are year-over-year outcomes, so we'd have to
Right,
look at the cohort
right,
to know,
exactly. So I
to
don't
do
know
that
for cohort.
comparison. I
don't have
could
that.
check it out, but
Right,
I'd have
but
to go
it's
digging.
just, I'm just saying that, you can throw numbers here and throw numbers there, and I'm not,
I haven't looked at meeting versus
I'm
exceeding,
not-
no.
right, and I'm not questioning the advantage for our students in focal groups. I think that is pretty clear. My concern is whether we're providing honors as I'm seeing it defined outside as greater depth, pace, and breadth. And I'm just, and maybe that's not what you were doing before either, but I'm essentially being asked to say, we're going from one model to another model, and so I'm being asked to say, yes, this type of honors is okay versus the other type. And so I'm trying to look at just a general thing, and I'm just not sure. So I appreciate everything you folks are doing. I'm just still concerned about moving this into grade 10 also.
Thank you. Mr. Schlickman, did you want to comment or no? Oh, did you?
I'll take my turn and let Dr. Jenger go afterwards. At the discretion of the chair who
Go ahead.
runs the meeting. First of all, Ms. Keyes is, in layman's term, describing the zone of proximal development in which we want every child to be in that sweet spot where it's not too easy and not too hard. And I think that that's what the goal that I've heard from you is, that you can take a class of 20, 25 students and get them to their zone of proximal development. I taught math in high school. I didn't teach English, so I have a different perspective of teaching students at that level. The one thing that I heard was the discussion of faster learning, and I don't think the goal is ever faster learning. Piaget said that's the American problem. Every time he came to America, they said, how do we get our kids through this developmental process faster? And as somebody who graduated from high school a year too early, I don't think that's a great goal, because all it does is puts you in the workforce a year earlier. So to that extent, first of all, I want to ask the question regarding students who are reportedly not challenged. How many of them come to you and say, what more can I do? How can I go further or deeper? And what's the response?
I don't hear from students who say they're not challenged.
Okay. How many teachers in grade 10 have experience teaching in the 9th grade heterogeneous model? In other words, how many people who have done this in 9th grade are going to be teaching 10th grade next year?
We don't typically make those designations quite so early in the year, but I don't anticipate that any of our current 9th grade teachers will be teaching 10th grade next year. The way that we organize our department are typically our 9th grade teachers teach either 11th grade or 12th grade, and our 10th grade teachers teach either 10th, 11th, or 10th and 12th.
So my question then is, how do you then have a structure in place or have an expert in place within the 10th grade to cross-pollinate?
So we have been working very closely as a department in the 9th grade. I believe the lead who was working on this for a number of years was Nicole Edson. We have collaborated very closely with her, and as well as Kevin Richardson, who also started the pilot, Tim Martin, Liza Basso-Phelps, who's also part of our department. We work very collaboratively as a department. Nicole attended a summer planning session with the 10th grade team to really walk them through, here are the steps that 9th grade sort of went to begin this work. Here's what has to get done, to sort of offer a blueprint of how that works. And then we typically meet together as a department once a month. And like last month, for example, we looked at student writing samples, and that is in order to ensure consistency and calibration around rigor, expectations, and work towards a standard. And that's regular work that we engage in as a department on a very, very regular basis. So I don't think it's like we would need to bring the 9th grade to 10th grade. I think we're constantly collaborating to ensure, consistency, vertical articulation and alignment, and also skill set. But I would be remiss if I didn't say we have an incredibly talented 9th grade team who worked incredibly hard on this proposal, but we also have a very incredibly talented 10th grade team who's very dedicated and has worked very hard on this. And so I feel very confident in the skills of our department to extend, continue, and refine this work. And I also would note that 9th grade is continually refining this work too, right? Like, we never arrive in education. We are constantly striving to serve our students and to do our work better. And so I think that serves us well as we look ahead to that.
My job as a school committee member is to oversee the broad district policy. I don't get involved in running schools. It's not my job. Jenga's job is to optimize everything in the school. I'm going to say that said, if I view the opportunity to cross-pollinate with at least one teacher moving up from 9th to 10th grade when we make this adjustment to be of benefit, if that's at all possible. Now, I don't know your teachers. I don't know how things work. I don't live your life day to day, but that's just my gut reaction. And coming from the thought of scheduling, I've scheduled a large high school. It's a bear. And every time you add a restriction to the master schedule, not only do you make it more difficult to run the schedule and to get satisfaction for all your students where they get all the courses they've asked for, you start to get into tangles with singletons where you've got some elective or something with only one section being run, that it makes it more difficult to get into. And with the other choices and options around for electives and leveled courses in other departments, broadening this out to have a heterogeneous system for English language arts in grade 10 is something that can very definitely make it easier for students to receive education in other areas that are not English language arts that will benefit their school career. I think the research shows that where this is done well, it works well. And it's something that we should do, and the evidence before me is that the English department at Arlington High School is doing an extraordinary job in implementing this model, and I'm very happy to see us moving forward.
I just have two questions. One is, I'm just curious, in the slide deck, I think it's slide 6, where it shows the participation rate of the different groups, and everybody is higher than they were pre-pilot, so that's good. And it's only 1 year, and I don't know what the total numbers are, so the significance, but it is notable that the group that has dropped is Black and Hispanic students, and so I'm wondering if you have any sense of why and how you're thinking about trying to reverse that trend.
You're talking about the fact that it goes 55, 58, and then 46?
I'm looking at the
Black and Hispanic participation rates.
I'm not seeing the exact numbers on the slide. I'm just looking at the lines. So yeah.
So all I can say is the numbers are small.
That was
so
part of what I was figuring.
there's a lot of volatility in those numbers, right? You're talking about 20 students.
Okay.
So I think we'd have to track it over time to know whether that
Okay.
1-year drop is a big one or
Okay.
just a couple kids.
Okay.
I mean, last year, there was a 1% drop in something which, when I went back and looked, it was because of one student, right, who actually didn't come. Right?
Yeah.
So they were in the data for a long time before they got taken out of the data. So I can bounce it around a lot.
Okay.
With that number.
I figured that was probably the answer. I just want, I feel like given like
there is a
everything,
reason,
all
it's
all of
probably
the
got a
other
name.
data
Yeah.
is trending in a particular way. I don't want to ignore that, and so continuing to watch it feels important. There may not be an answer to this, but I'm wondering if you've received any feedback from families or parents who have actually had experienced before and after the pilot, right? Like, it's really hard I think this question of my kid isn't being challenged enough, what is the definition of rigor? What does a 15-year-old think the definition of rigor is? I mean, my kids are younger, but I don't really trust their assessment of those things. But so there must be some, and again, these numbers are small, right? But some small, I just wonder if you've heard from anyone who's either said, my older kid took honors English in 9th grade and it was so much better than it is now, or like the opposite, if there's been any feedback at all from those types of situations.
Unfortunately, no. We either have people, I believe all of the feedback based on the comments that we received through the form just talk about their child's experience and heterogeneous grouping.
Okay.
I mean, I'll be honest, I have not had, parents express concern, is my kid being challenged, because they don't have a comparison. And, because they don't know what 10th grade looks like, they don't know what it looked like before. I have not had really one person in 3 years, and this is not true of almost any other class, come to me and say, my kid's having a bad experience in English 9 because their needs aren't being met. And I think that's an important thing to note. So do we have anecdotally, I recently had a conversation with a parent, and they said, well, my kid's, not feeling super challenged. I was talking about English 9. Then I asked, and as I always will, what about their other classes? And they're like, no, it's not really a difference. And so I think it's important that we have anecdotal evidence of kids going home to mom and saying, and if you look at our data, kids say, the teacher makes it interesting, I learned a lot, it's rigorous, I'm not that interested. Right? And that's consistent, actually, not just in English 9, but in lots of other classes. And so, what I think is really important to note in this class is 80% or more of students are saying they are extremely or very positive about the level of rigor. Over 80% of the class are extremely or very positive about the pedagogical effectiveness. They're learning a lot. So I remember a parent once came to me, not about this class, and said, my kid said that class is really easy. And I said, are they learning a lot? I said, yeah, they said they're learning a ton. And I said, so is this a good or a bad thing? And I said, I guess it's a good thing, right? And then the last thing that I think is, not the second to last thing that's really important, is we're asking this question about pedagogical effectiveness. 94% of the students in the first cohort got 3s on the AP.
Right.
The number of students seeking higher level of challenge went up. And I also think it's really important for us to understand exclusion, which is the opposite of inclusion, is not our preference. Leveling is putting students in a more restrictive environment. It is disproportionately negative for students in IEPs. It is disproportionately negative for students of color. So leveling where we don't have to is not a neutral act. It's an act of restricting opportunity for students. So part of the reason why we're so eager to do this is because we see it having not neutral effects, but extremely positive impacts. 100 more students took honors last year because they were in heterogeneous grouping compared to what was happening before. And of the roughly 20 African-American students, 5 more, right? 3 more. That's a huge positive. And so to the extent that this opens opportunity for those students, I think that we would really be remiss to keep on restricting those opportunities.
One last question that I thought of while you were talking, because we have 10th grade teachers here, I'm wondering if, so right now you're teaching kids who came from the heterogeneous program and then they're having their first experience in a leveled English class, right? Because I think that's the other thing that's important to like keep in mind is like nobody's coming into 9th grade English knowing what, having like a base, like we don't know what honor, right? You don't have that in the middle school. So I'm curious if you're hearing any, you know, as kids were sort of coming out of the heterogeneous back or into the traditional leveled atmosphere, if you're like hearing like, you know, like regret, you know, like it was better, you know, like if you're hearing anything at all from kids about how the experience feels different in 10th grade than 9th grade.
I mean, I haven't heard anything,
Okay.
but I also think that it's not often that 10th graders will just casually drop that in, you know. I'm hearing more about their sports games
Right.
or, you know, the TV show they watch. So, but I haven't heard any like comments, you know.
Well, I assume if
with
you're
my-
not hearing people ask for more challenges,
Yeah.
you're probably not hearing things that are more nuanced either.
Dr. Holman?
I just wanted to add on to some of the data that Dr. Jenger was citing, because I looked up the percent of students who exceeded expectations in the class of 2026 in 10th grade was 24%. It was 19% when that same cohort of students was in 8th grade. So the percentage of students exceeding expectations is also increasing within that cohort. I haven't looked at any other cohorts.
So the purpose of this was to, did you enjoy coming to school committee tonight? The purpose of this was to make sure we get out all the questions that might come up so that we can take a vote on the main student study program of studies. Thank you. My one question, I think it was you, Ms. Cooney, you said that we've had a different experience than other districts. Am I to assume that's because we did a 3-year kind of pilot? Is that what you would say the number one reason is?
Yeah, I think, well, that was like a parent concern that actually, that was the number one parent concern is
Yeah.
how is Arlington different than other surrounding districts
Yeah.
who haven't yet
So how
had the
would you answer
success?
that?
I would answer it in a couple of different ways. Like one, we started this with very strong teacher buy-in. These are teachers who are really committed to this and wanted to do the work. And I don't know that that was the case in other districts. I think another piece is this has been a slower rollout so that we have really been able to methodically prepare for this because like nobody up here does not want this to succeed, right? And we're following this data really, really closely, and we would not be recommending its expansion if our data looked different. And so I think that in moving a little bit more slowly with teacher buy-in, with high support, so I always talk about like when we're doing a high ask, like heterogeneous grouping of teachers, which is more work and more planning, we also need to offer really high support. And so really thinking about like what are ways that we can provide additional professional development, what are ways that we can build additional planning time for the department to work together has allowed us to have success in ways that other districts have not yet had.
Got it. Dr. Jenger, Mike, go ahead.
Just a couple points on that. So when people say other districts, they're particularly talking about what happened in Newton, which was recently heavily covered. Newton did that in different subjects. They did it in sequential subjects, which are math. I mean, I just was checking to make sure I was right. But they did it in math and science and world language, which has not been what we're doing. English is much more spiraled. There are also heterogeneously grouped and unleveled classes in English in a lot of our surrounding districts. It's just such a well-established practice that we don't talk about it.
Got it.
3-4 years ago, we looked and talked to them. I can't remember who they were anymore. I'd have to look it up.
So, and then my final question, and then we're going to move on to the program of studies. This has been a very good conversation. I think everybody in the school committee got all the information they needed before they take the vote on the studies. So, are there any other plans within the school, within the high school, to move to any heterogeneous groupings in other subject areas?
So, thank you for asking that. Wrote that down to say. Sort of yes and no. And by the yes and no, I mean this. Heterogeneous grouping is a long-standing practice at Arlington High School. So there are other small standalone classes and programs that are already heterogeneously grouped depending on what's going on. So to say no, there are no plans.
Yeah, no,
would have been
I know there are,
disingenuous.
but I'm talking about a plan.
But the reality is, it's a strategy amongst many strategies. It's always under consideration. But there's not, I don't know, like, there's not a next step in the process, right? I think we take this one step at a time. We see where programmatically and academically it seems to make sense.
Well, I think we have a good example in a program here that we piloted and then studied for a while before we rolled it out. So I think that's like maybe what is Arlington's approach to this, that this approach has evolved. Maybe it wasn't the plan, but it seems to have evolved, and if it's worked, then it's something that we should apply to other plans to expand this. Okay. Thank you very much. Now the leadership come. You guys can stay if you want. It's up to you. But now we're going to do the, you don't work for me. Do whatever you want to do. I'm sorry.
I think they might indirectly work.
Yeah, no, but not directly. They should be happy about that. So then now we're going to hear about the program of studies. And I think we're just interested in some of the new things you're doing. And then there'll be a motion, and then Ms. Keys is going to do a presentation on the union's proposals for a budget.
So,
right? Go ahead. You're on.
So unless you would prefer otherwise, the sequence we thought we were going to do was, I was going to say what I'm about to say. Then I was going to hand it to Michael Kozik, our history department chair, who is going to talk about one of the changes first, which is the innovations pathway.
Great.
Then Mr. McCarthy will go through the sort of process of pulling the rest of this together, and then I anticipate wanting to have conversations about a few specific programs.
What do you want up right now? Or is it going to
Right
this
now,
first?
that's
Okay.
the right one.
Great.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for letting us talk a little bit about this tonight. So again, I'm Michael Kozak. I'm the K-12 Director of History and Social Studies. What I'm talking about is the Innovation Career Pathways, which is a program through DESE. We would be, there's already 120 schools that have already done this across the Commonwealth. So this is not a new program in the state, but it would be new for us. So what you can see on the screen is that there are four major components of this program, that we have courses that are guided and structured in a way that support students in college and career. Some of those courses already exist, and some courses would be new. What we're going to talk about tonight is just one new course. It starts in 9th grade and then continues through 10th, 11th, and 12th. The other component of this is enhanced student supports. So currently, students are given or have access to college and career counseling. This would expand that to more students and go deeper into that kind of college and career counseling. And we would articulate that from 8th grade to 9th grade a little bit more clearly as well. The other piece to this is increased internships. Our internship program at the high school has been wildly successful, and so this would expand those kinds of opportunities. Nicole Edson, who you've heard her name earlier tonight, is working with us on this program. And then the final piece of this is, at the insistence of DESE, and of course our idea here as well, is that equity is at the core of what we're doing and why we're rolling this program out, which is connected, of course, to the strategic plan and priority 1. So as you can see with the graph, there was internships, guidance, foundation and advanced courses lead us to these innovation career pathways. On the next slide, what you can see is that there are 5 approved DESE career pathways, but we would actually add a 6th, which is related to our strategic plan, number 2, to create more opportunities for pre-K through 12 education for students in our focal groups. So what we're doing is we're starting with the healthcare pathway. And part of the reason we are starting with the healthcare pathway is we already have courses and internships that help us roll this out. As we go forward in other pathways, we will need to add or shift or change courses more significantly. So we're going to start small with this healthcare pathway, and then as we move forward, we'll be able to expand out into other pathways. Next year, we would take on the pre-K through 12 education pathway, as well as the business and finance pathway. On the next slide, you can see the new course that would be available for 9th graders. It is a Introduction to Healthcare seminar. So in that seminar, they would get access to college-level lectures, but also support through teachers, access to career professionals in the healthcare field. So what they're getting is a vision of what it might look like for them to proceed into, again, careers in the healthcare field or college that would eventually lead them into careers. And I just want to say one more thing about the healthcare component of this. We are thinking of healthcare broadly, both mental health care as well as physical health care. And the last slide here on the process and support is back in the spring, we submitted a letter of intent, and that letter of intent was based on focus groups with students in our focal groups. So we got feedback from at least 60 students in the various focal groups, and parent communication and forums with parents as well. We applied for and received a planning grant. That's where we're in right now. We applied for and got approved to be a Innovation Career Pathway school in the Part A application, and the Part B application will be due in February. And in the spring, we'll be applying for a $75,000 implementation grant, and hopefully that will help us move through the rest of the pathway. DESE will continue to support us throughout this process. There was an equity seminar a couple of weeks ago, how to make sure, again, what we're doing is focused on building equity and access. We will be visiting schools that have already done this pathway, Reading High School, for example. And then there's plenty of other office hours that we will be working with DESE to make sure that our work is compatible with the expectations. So that is the Innovation Career Pathways. And just a side, we also surveyed and got responses from 800 8th and 9th graders about their interest in this. And it's pretty incredible the amount of interest students have in this. And they're asking us, when is the next one? How about a different pathway? How about one in clean energy? How about one in law? So they're really interested in thinking about how their courses are connected to the types of careers that they're interested in the future.
Procedurally, would you like us to continue on with the presentation? Or?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Because and then
So, I'm Bill McCarthy, I'm the assistant principal here at the high school.
What do you want me to pull up?
I believe everyone had received the
change.
program of studies
Yep.
Updates form.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, I'm Bill McCarthy, I'm the assistant principal at the high school. It's nice to see everyone. I always love coming to this presentation because it's when we start making that turn to next year and planning out next year. So you all received a copy of the updates and new courses. In terms of process, just an overview, we do, in September, bright and early, we start looking at the course requests we received the year earlier. We look at the course fill rates, and we start planning out what the year after will look like. Part of that includes looking at educational needs, the demand for courses, and then we start meeting with department heads, like Mr. Kozak over here and Ms. Cooney, who was here earlier. And we start planning out what those new courses are going to look like. What you have in front of you, the updates and new courses, I will walk through those courses. We've already covered the heterogeneous update the Innovative Pathways update. Would you like to talk about the substance abuse update?
Oh, sure.
Sorry if I'm catching you off guard.
Good evening. I'm Scott O'Brien. I oversee the high school counseling and social work department. And in the program of studies, it previously listed a substance program that was no longer used. As of 2024, we started implementing a new program called iDecide through collaboration with the Center for School Behavioral Health, Mass General Hospital, and Mass Department of Public Health in a scientifically proven, studied program to help students who have either been found to be abusing substances, and it could be any substance, or volunteer that information that they have been struggling with substances. It can be any member of our faculty can be trained to lead the program. We started with social workers and school counselors, and the program itself encourages coaches and other people and members that students feel comfortable with. And one of the main purposes is not just to implement a substance treatment program, but also to reduce consequences and behavioral exclusionary practices. So we've included that language in here for an update. I know at some point we might be discussing moving this language to the student handbook versus the program of study. But that is the update for now.
Thank you. The other piece we are updating is a competency determination. Those are just two changes. One is in terms of completing coursework. We are adding U.S. history to match the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. And we're adjusting the wording around MCAS as a graduation requirement. And now I get to the fun part, which is the new courses. Every year we have the teachers come forward and discuss what new courses they want to offer, and it's always amazing to see what they are producing. So we are updating our media arts and digital arts classroom. You may remember that in our past we had animation, filmmaking, and I know there's one more in there.
Photography.
Digital photography. What we've decided to do is to take those level ones, fold them into a year-long class to prep students. Levels 2, 3, and 4 of those courses will still exist. So after their freshman year or their sophomore year, they can venture to take these other specified courses. As you see, we also have innovative career pathways, which Mr. Kozak talked about earlier. Intro to software engineering. Woodworking is getting an update. We're adding sculpting to it. That is actually, I wrote over here, advanced. That is going to be at an honors level class. And obviously, we are continuing to expand our visual arts and PE offerings as we get a little more settled into our new spaces. You'll notice there are some course changes listed below that. One is going to be astronomy, will become a full year course. We are also adding AP pre-calculus. This is in place of the pre-calculus for BC. This is a new AP course. We're very excited about where this is going to go. Several courses will be changing their names, including adaptive PE, which will now become unified PE. That is matching with the unified athletics that we'll be doing in the school. I know Athletic Director John Bola came by earlier and presented on that. I know the basketball season has ended. Bowling is starting soon, so we'll get the schedule out to everybody. We'd love to see people come by. And economic ideas and policy will be changing to match the Syracuse University Economic Ideas and Issues. That is a course that we call SUPA. It matches with Syracuse University, and when a student passes that course here and fulfills the requirements, they get a credit from Syracuse University. We are saying goodbye to some courses. We are reactivating a few courses, including oceanography, physiology and exercise and activity. These are two courses we've offered in the past. And we are retiring a few courses, entomology, ethnic studies, video game development, and many of these courses that are going away are actually getting folded into other courses, and the curriculum will be picked up in other ways. That takes me through the new courses and the competency determination. So at this point, I'll pause if there's any questions.
Are there any questions from any of the members? Dr. Holman has a question?
Just can you speak to, really quickly, Mr. McCarthy, Ms. Exton isn't here, but she had had a question about the string orchestra and chorale.
Yes.
Or was that you?
No, it was
Sorry.
Miss Sexton, and I don't know if my question's the same. I had a question about string orchestra.
The two biweekly string orchestra and chorale courses, why are those being eliminated? There was a question
So
last week.
they are, the courses, the full week courses will still be active. What we realized is for freshmen, it fits perfectly into their schedule because every freshman takes PE twice a week, and the biweekly chorus or biweekly orchestra matches perfectly into their schedule. When you get to be a sophomore, junior, or senior, it does not fit into your schedule. What happens is if you sign up for biweekly chorus, it means you cannot take a different elective. And it would knock you out for a full year. So you would not be able to take, say, astronomy and oceanography because that would happen across the entire year. What we are still open to independent studies in those fields. So students who are very interested could speak to the teacher, speak to Ms. Way, department head, and see if something is flexible in that regard. But we found quite a few people were taking the course and being bumped out of other electives.
The biweekly course was originally created, and the biweekly instrumental music, to allow freshmen to stay in the band or chorus while taking another elective because they had the PE slot. It then sort of crept its way up into upper grades, where really it was watering down students' experiences and reducing their opportunity to take other electives. So we're taking that out. If there are special cases with individual students, they could do something through an independent study.
Can I just add, because I
Yep.
was,
Go ahead.
it looked like in the program, so I may just be reading the document wrong. So does that mean there is now no non-honors string orchestra? Because that's just how I'm reading the
So
description.
all of the arts, our arts programs are honors for all.
Okay, then,
So the distinction, which in the past had been treated as an honors thing, there are select programs that you have to be selected
Right.
into, but they're all honors.
okay, because in the grid, there's both string orchestra and string orchestra honors listed, but in the narrative write-up, only honors is listed.
He's
I will
writing it down, which means we need to check.
I will double check that for you, but as Dr. Janger said, all the performing arts classes are at the honors level.
That answers my question.
If we don't find at least 5 errors during this meeting,
You're killing me, Dr.
you guys
Janger.
are not reading carefully enough. It's a lot of moving pieces when we put this all together. You try to think it's in one place and you find a place somewhere else on another page that's affected by it, so that's helpful. Do you want to finish? There were 2 other changes.
There were 2 other changes that we wanted to bring your attention. One is integrated statistics and quantitative reasoning will be a new math course offered. That will be taking the place of quantitative reasoning. Now, our plan with this is that students would be able to opt into this course. They would still have the option of taking statistics afterwards, but the idea is to give students who may not want to be on the calculus path an opportunity to continue their math studies.
And we're excited. This is actually a DESE pilot that we've been part of for the last year. And the idea is to have sort of life, the stuff you really need to know in your life about math to be secure and go on for college and career.
And the other piece we are discussing is a retirement of a course, and that will be Italian 1. Currently, we do offer...
Want me to speak to that?
Nope, go right ahead, sir.
So this is a little bittersweet. So we have recently heard of retirement. Some people may be hearing this for the first time, but he knows we're saying it. So our Italian teacher, who is a .8 at this point, is retiring. So that program right now sustains 4 class sections, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the only language that we introduce only at the high school level. So we're not able to sustain it up to the AP level because the students are not far enough along. It is our expectation that we would have a very difficult time from past experience and knowing what other schools are doing, replacing that with a .8 position and maintaining that. And again, it becomes an expensive program to run. So we've sort of been looking towards phasing that out over time. So the plan would be that we would not offer Italian 1, so we don't have new students starting a pipeline that we can't support. We would support Italian 2, most likely with another teacher who's not an Italian teacher, using online and other materials. And we're going to gather information from our students in level 2 and 3 to see if there are students who are interested in supporting some sort of online or outside study for Italian 3. So that's something we'll look into in the fall.
Okay, anything else to present?
I think I talked about AP Calculus. So the ones that I had written notes on as things that people might want to ask questions about, just to queue up, I think the AP Pre-Calculus is a change, right? That is changing from what we did last year. So if you remember last year, we had Pre-Calculus Honors and Pre-Calculus A. And based on the fact that the state and others consider Pre-Calculus an advanced curriculum, we wanted to give both honors curriculum credit. Having done that, those two classes are now weighted equivalently. And we find that there's actually a real appetite for our students who are not necessarily interested in going on to BC Calc to simply take the honors level class, which I think is fair and appropriate. But in order to streamline it and align our curriculum more closely, there is an AP Pre-Calculus class. And the AP Pre-Calculus class is set up so that you have 108 days worth of curriculum that prepares you for the AP Pre-Calculus test, which then has the large part of the fourth quarter. So if you're a senior and you're taking that class, you take AP Pre-Calculus, you take the AP exam. If you're a junior and you're taking that class, you take it up to the AP exam and then finish with the fourth section, which is the preparation for BC Calculus. So it actually works very well in terms of the timing of our programming. And that also then means that students taking the higher level class are now getting AP credit, and the students taking the lower level class, which prepares you for AP Calculus AB, get the honors level credit. So it really aligns and streamlines the program.
Any questions at all? Yes.
Thank you. So my questions are about the ICP program. Sounds like a great program, but we are obviously facing a very tight budget year. It looks like when I click through that the only additional course and support needed is really that seminar, some enhanced support for the students that may require some resources, sort of moving some of the internship program from different opportunities, which is, that we already have a coordinator who can probably do that. Are there any other resources that this program will require?
Other than what you've already talked about, but again, there's a grant that is going to help us with those kinds of resources needs, and I think it'll also help us expand some opportunities for example, students might be able to do a medical simulation kind of thing on computers, things like that. So there's opportunities out there that, again, the DESE is providing support for.
Mr. Kozich, could you talk a little bit about the expectations and parameters of the grant? We talked about this the other day, and then also the ongoing support of that grant.
Yeah, so with each new pathway, there's another $50,000 grant that is available to support the expansion of the pathway. And so that is part of the reason we are phasing in each of the pathways as we go. So we're not doing this without the kind of support that we need, particularly in this budget climate. So I think we're going to have the support both from DESE and, of course, within our school and district to be able to support this kind of program. One of the things that I hope will happen with this is existing courses will be able to shift and think about how do we support kids along their career and college path in new and different ways. So, for example, an assessment becomes much more connected to the kinds of real-world application that they're going to face in the future in these, and in particular, these pathways that DESE has identified are the careers that Massachusetts in particular needs for the future.
Yeah, I did note in the application process that we do have to commit to supporting the program. So I do think as we think about expanding it, that we just need to make sure we have, like you said, we're repurposing resources and not adding. Thanks.
Sure. Go ahead. How do you do?
So I also had just a question. The healthcare seminar, is this coming from DESE? I mean, is that where we're getting this from? Or how?
The particular course or the?
Yeah, yes. It says students will learn key content online from Stanford University professors and et cetera, et cetera. It sounds like it's a course that we're getting from Stanford, but did DESE say take that one?
No. DESE gives you lots of latitude in terms of the types of things you can provide students. So this was something as a way to give students just a taste of what a healthcare field might look like. And it's a 7-unit series from Coursera that is delivered through the Stanford University professors. And after those 7 units or lectures, you'll have opportunities again to bring in career professionals, to expose kids to folks in the fields. And the other piece will be to develop a problem within healthcare that a student wants to solve. So to begin thinking about the kinds of practical applications of what some of the challenges we have in the healthcare field right now, for example, access and opportunity.
Okay. I guess my only comment would be, I hope you get some nurses in there. The course as outlined here feels really weird because it's talking about a lot of the things which are less used, and there's no mention of nurses, which are like the major component of the healthcare system. So,
yeah, one of the things I didn't mention, for example, is that what we're hoping to provide throughout these pathways is what's called industry recognized credentials. So that would lead students to begin to be able to, for example, to be in a nursing program more quickly. That's one of the strongest and most needed fields, as you already mentioned. So we're looking at all of this, working with industry partners, as well as DESE, as well as other schools, to see what kinds of opportunities we need to provide students so that they're ready for the types of careers that are out there and highly needed. So we have data on that. If you want to, I can provide that later.
thank you.
Any other questions? So my question is, I am noticing a change in the graduation requirements for history.
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
So that in the IKFE policy, which was introduced to the school committee,
Yeah.
and based on what's coming from the state was adding requirements for the competency determination starting in 2027 in history. It being that we already require you to take U.S. history as a graduation requirement, adopting that as part of the competency determination changes nothing and seemed a lot easier than staging in something which was already there anyway.
So the second one on, I don't know what page it is, it says past 3 years of history, social science to include world history and 2 U.S. history courses. So prior to this, it said to include world history and U.S. history 1 and or AP U.S. history, African American studies, or U.S. history 2. That was the old policy that we had last spring. And so then is the change, so that's what I'm asking about, Dr. Janger. So is the change in number 2 on page, I don't know what page it is. I don't know. Where it says graduation requirements?
Yeah, no, I'm getting there.
Yeah. So that's new language. So it's disclosed, and we're seeing it now, so we know what we're voting on.
Thank you.
And the whole committee knows what it's voting on, so that's fine. But I'm just, I understand.
It was not an intent to change anything but the language of the
Just the
CD.
competency determination was the goal.
Was the goal, but does that, is the change in the wording in number 2 from the old handbook, the old program of studies.
I'm going up, hang on.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm just searching.
right there. What page is that?
On the program of studies, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so the program of studies. So on the program of studies we approved last year, which we had a lot of discussions about,
Yeah?
there was, right, there was a new course added. And we talked that through. Remember that?
Yeah, did somebody change that? Hang on a second. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to go.
Now we're on the right page, number
Yeah, I'm going
2?
to find the old program of studies to see what it says.
Yeah. Do you have the old program of studies?
Here's the comparison document.
Goes to the machine.
Dr. So the,
Yeah, no, I got it. Used to say,
History and U.S. history.
yeah, it used to say, yeah.
who edited that?
Yeah, so what do you guys,
I have no idea who
okay.
edited that.
All right,
I think we should go back to the old language.
yeah, so.
I apologize for that.
That's okay, so I think it would be good,
Thank you.
unless you, because also, when I look at the 2 U.S. history courses, there's a lot in there, which is great. There's actually some great courses. I wish I could sign up for them. But what do you want to do? That's what I'm trying to figure out here. What do you guys
I
want to do?
think I'd like to change that line back, if that's okay.
Okay, so let's just assume that it's an administrative change back to the language that you had in the last one.
Yes.
Thank you.
That sound good?
Yes.
All right. All right, any other questions?
Sorry,
They asked a question about the orchestra, but go ahead. You
did
get
they
that.
answer it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I want you to hear it.
Okay.
What's the answer about the orchestra, Bill?
So originally, biweekly chorus and orchestra were designed for freshmen to be able to take opposite their PE classes, and it fit to their schedule very well. As the desire for that course expanded, we had upperclassmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors that decided to try to take those courses. But because they only meet twice a week, it was excluding them from being able to take other electives. So they would only be taking a course 2 days out of the week, and they wouldn't be able to fill their schedule with any other electives. So there is still an opportunity, if students want, to talk to the teacher, talk to the department head, and we do offer independent studies that can fit into their schedule, and it wouldn't preclude them from taking an elective for a semester or a full year.
Okay, and there's still an,
And it would still exist for the freshmen.
okay, great, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Of course. How was the concert?
It was wonderful.
Good, glad to hear. Any other questions? Dr. Allison Ampe?
I didn't follow the ball in the competency thing, so what does the current language for history requirement read? I mean, what you want it to read, not what it,
So last year, it said, past 3 years of history / social science, open parens, to include world history and U.S. history, close parens, which is the state requirement. That somehow got changed to 3 years to include world history and 2 years of U.S. history. So we just went back to.
Actually, didn't we have a version where we talked about U.S. History 1, 2, or I can't remember.
yeah.
That was the version, yeah.
It somehow went from saying to include world history and U.S. history to saying to include world history and 2 U.S. history courses.
Correct.
Which we don't want to do because there are lots of history courses, so
Right.
that third
No,
one
no,
could
I
be something
think-
else.
I think a couple years ago, that's what it was 2 U.S. history
Might have been.
courses. So I think this is actually like 2 versions. Anyway, I'm happy with U.S. and
Well-
U.S. history. Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, so why don't we just agree to adopt this with an understanding that the superintendent and the principal will convene to have language in it that reflects.
I think we got it. It'll
And that's what it
have
was
the
last
point.
year, I just assumed.
Yeah, the language from last year, which is to include world history and U.S. history. Period.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Are there any questions? So we didn't wait for you guys to come back, but you guys get to vote because We're a little behind schedule, and Ms. Keys has had it. She wants to give her presentation. So may I have is there any more discussion about this? Can I have a motion
Move to adopt the program of studies for 2026-27.
Motion by Mr. Schlickman with all the understanding we had before about the changes, and a second by
Second?
Ms. Exton. Do we have any more discussion on the motion? You do. Okay.
I'm going to vote no because I am still uncomfortable with the heterogeneous change for English 10.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I, I'm sorry to do this, but can I ask one additional question
You
about
can
the
ask questions, go
the
ahead. The
heterogeneous-
motion's on the table, you can do what you
The
want.
10th grade heterogeneous English classes, have you all discussed what would be, for example, a set of metrics that would trigger you to reevaluate the heterogeneous class at the 10th grade level? Like so for example, if you had certain things that are happening that you thought were not the right things for, all of the students, what does that look like?
So it's the same metrics we use for English 9, which is participation rates should be the same or better. Grades should be the same or better. Culture and climate feedback should be the same or better. Now, of course, there's a lot of things. We were really lucky with the English 9 that everything was either flat or up. We might get more mixed things, and then we can all have a discussion. But basically, those and then the carry-on effect. So continuation on MCAS scores, AP scores, and AP participation should be the same or better.
And sorry, follow-up question. If you saw trends that the exceeding kids are starting to not perform at that level, if you see numbers going down, are there thoughts about how you would think about that piece?
Well, if it was attributable to that, we would probably move back to a different level model.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments, questions, statements, concerns? Any feelings you want to put out there? Why don't we vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the vote is 6-1. The program of studies is accepted by a vote of, is adopted?
Is approved.
Is approved by a vote of 6-1. Thank you very much. We appreciate you
Thank you.
being here the entire evening. Next, we're going to hear a presentation by Ms. Keys and her colleagues on the wants or desires of the Arlington Education Association for our budget. Budget priorities, that's the noun.
Is there anything as much fun as editing by committee? Right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for your patience. We're a little behind schedule. We apologize. Go ahead.
Thank you guys so much for anybody who's watching at home this exciting meeting. I'm Juliana Keys. I am a 7th grade global studies teacher at Ottoson Middle School, and it is my 6th year as president of the Arlington Education Association, which is the union that represents a whole lot of us people here in Arlington. I'm here with, I'll let my two VPs introduce themselves for a second. Sure.
I'm Jen Medeiros. I'm the second vice president of the AA, 7th grade English teacher at Ottoson.
Erica Tonishell, first vice president, history teacher at AHS.
Okay. I don't know if I should thank you for making me put a budget presentation together that didn't require costing out a lot of additions this year, or curse you for making me put together this budget presentation. But we really appreciate the opportunity to come before you and talk about what the staff priorities are in building the budget next year. We recognize that this is a really unique opportunity that we have here in Arlington, and we greatly appreciate it. So, we're jumping ahead. Look at that. I'm on 2. I was still on my intro slide. Here we go. Arlington Education Association is 3 units that represent all of the people you see on the slides here. We are Unit A, which is our licensed staff, Unit D, which are our paraprofessionals, and Unit C, which are our administrative assistant and office staff. So we have quite a diverse group that we represent, which makes presentations like this challenging because all of these people are very, very important to everything that we do every day. So All right, now we can go on. The three of us sitting here represent 45 combined years working in Arlington. And some of what we have learned in our time here are you can't do more with less. You can't bridge the gap with bake sales. You can't maintain top of the town manager 12 test scores with bottom of the town manager 12 salaries. That over time, staff are prioritizing their own families and their own physical and mental health more than in the past, which is affecting things like absence rates and volunteering for non-paid after-school roles that used to be more prevalent than they are now. And finally, and this one I think is important for the community to hear, budget shortfalls need to be fixed by adjusting funding formulas at the state level. This is not a deficit of the people of Arlington or the people running this town. It is a problem with state tax code. But until that happens, residents have to make up the difference locally. And we sit here today, none of the three of us live in Arlington, but we are all homeowners in towns in Massachusetts, and we are facing these same decisions in our own communities of looking at our own personal budgets and looking at the town budgets and looking at the school budgets and having to decide, where you can cover the difference. So, all right. So our goals for next year, our most important goal is that everybody who currently has a job in Arlington and is rated proficient will have a job here next year if they want one. That is our overarching goal. It might look different, but we hope that if you want to stay in Arlington, you can stay in Arlington. We want to make sure that we maintain high-quality practices like common planning time, a wide variety of elective courses for secondary students, building-based librarians and specialist teams, and building and departmental leadership teams that keep us going every day. And we want to protect the services and supports for our most vulnerable students and find ways to increase those if at all possible. That's our goal for next year. So how are we supporting this? Because I think it's important for the community to understand that we are doing everything we can to make this work. First, we're encouraging our staff to broaden their licensure so that they can be more movable, flexible. We're trying to get all of our elementary teachers licensed K-5. We're trying to get our secondary staff licensed 6 to 12. We're trying to get people to pick up ML licenses or special ed licenses, anything that they can to make themselves able to be in more than one role here in town if needed. We are working at the state level to try to get more money. And I really want you to all understand that. That MTA is pushing very heavily for several bills that will help us. Thank you to those who signed on to the fiscal crisis action letter that I sent out. They are doing a round 2. They delivered over 1,000 signatures on that letter to the Ways and Means Committee. We're also testifying at State House committees, submitting written feedback on bills, trying to get more money coming to our towns from the state. We are trying to get people who are considering retirement, you heard about one just a few minutes ago from the high school, to notify the district early because that really helps with budgeting. And we are standing ready to support an override campaign if needed. I'm not going to read through all of the MTA legislative proposals, but you can see there an estimate. This is over $2 million additional money that could be coming into Arlington if these 4 or 5 bills passed. So, we are working to try to get more money that's not going to be on the back of the homeowners in town. So, if that doesn't work, we wanted to kind of go through what happens in our schools if we are underfunded or understaffed. And it really is about eroding the learning experience for students. So staff have less time to create extra learning experiences like field trips, special event days, or clubs, more reliance on those easy grading assignments rather than complex, deeper learning activities. I don't know, Ms. Medeiros, you want to mention about how long does it take you to grade a set of essays? And what would happen if you had 25 more kids?
Well, right, yeah, I mean, it can be 20 to 30 hours outside of teaching time, right, to grade, 90 or so essays and really do a nice job. And so when the number of students goes up, either the time to get it back to them extends, which is not great. You want feedback to be as immediate as it can be, or the quality of that feedback goes down, or the amount of writing opportunities we have in class goes down.
We want to be able to provide tailored support to student needs. And just as an example of that, I have some kids this year who want everything on paper. So almost everything I'm doing in dual modality. I'm doing a printout version and a computer version, and that means when I go to grade it, I have to go to two different places and find things. I'm like, oh, I don't see it in the computer. Let me go check the folder. Maybe they turned it in on paper. Maybe they still have it on paper. They haven't turned it in. Those kinds of things take a lot of time, and it's great when we can do that for kids. But if the number of students that we have is increased, it gets harder and harder to do those things that take a lot of extra time, and it really reduces it down to, what do I legally have to do to meet this kid's needs? And if a kid doesn't have a 504 or an IEP, it's harder to find the time to make those tailored supports. We lose access to resources, digital resources, library resources, coaching resources, which harms learning experiences. We lose elective opportunities or course options, the slower response time to communication. If I'm spending my entire prep period trying to catch up on extra grading, that's less time I have to send emails to families. And as workload increases, we have seen this in the past, staff leave for better conditions in neighboring districts, which is not something we want. So we asked staff in all of our buildings, just like we do every year, what should our budget priorities be? These are a few of the responses we got that I thought were particularly poignant. The priority needs to be student-facing staff in order to provide quality education for all students. The district wants deeper learning, but we need more staff to directly working with kids to do this better. Paras still are not making a livable wage, even where we are now. One teacher said, we finally have a proper intervention and coaching system in place for our elementary, and it's showing success. If we start cutting these positions, students at the most critical level of learning will not have access to proper supports. And there will be a ripple effect into the future. It's impossible to do our job without resources like paper or books. I'm already spending a lot of money out of my own pocket. And finally, this is a scary time for everyone, but as a newish staff member, being unemployed in this market is scary. So one thing we've noticed when we asked everybody is that there's really two different perspectives on what we need most in the school. If you ask a classroom teacher or a school-based paraprofessional what we need, you're going to get a very different answer than if you ask somebody working in central office. Because what I need to run a classroom is very different than what we need to run the district. And sometimes it's hard in each of those positions to see the perspective of the other person. So our next slide is sort of, we ask people, where could we save? And some of these are reasonable, and some of them are not doable. But you'll see, people suggested auditing what we're paying for on a subscription basis, whether it's apps or curriculum, cutting out all food at meetings. We don't need food. Sorry guys, you don't get dinner anymore. No more outside speakers, consultants, coaches, or mentors, or interns that cost money. Ending membership in all of our professional organizations, conferences, no traveling. Leveraging staff expertise and scheduling. Auditing utility expenses and making repairs to improve efficiency. A lot of people talked about the fact that we heat and cool our buildings by opening and closing windows even in the winter. So the heater's blasting, and then we open the window to cool it down, and we're paying to heat the outside. Better use of grant money, specifically paying for salaries, not training. We recognize that that is not ideal in a budgetary perspective, but that's something that teachers were suggesting. Redrawing the buffer zones to balance class sizes, more shared resources between buildings, staffing based on numbers and utilizing positions like therapy assistants to support places where there's high caseload, and reassessing some of the communication-based roles at the district level. So those are the answers we got from staff. From our position, working with us on issues early to avoid billable legal hours would always be helpful. Rethinking some administrative positions. We like the idea of like the split AP coordinator role at Gibbs this year. Is that something that could work other places? Expanding on that, the partner schools idea, that if we are going to have staff who are sharing, can we keep that model going that we're using this year, where like 2 schools partner together? So if somebody has to go back and forth between buildings, they're going back and forth between partner schools, so that there's still a sense of like community and camaraderie, like PD would be done together, that kind of thing. And then resuming we used to do professional development during the day, and we've gotten away from that because we didn't want to pull teachers out of teaching. But it also means that if we're like doing curriculum planning, we're paying people to do it over the summer. So is it worth a couple of, half days to put it back into the workday so it doesn't be an extra cost? And if you want to, none of these are big things. And that's what we want. We can save pennies all over the district. We can close the windows, and we can, not do that extra PD day in the summer, and that's not going to make a dent at all. And that's what we want to communicate to you is there's not a big magic bullet out there. There's nothing that we can just say, we'll cut out this program, it won't be as awesome, but we'll still be really good teachers. Anything that we're going to cut is going to hurt. And we know the reality of budgeting, but we just kind of wanted to be honest that we can find a little bit of savings. I think I added up, I think all the digital subscriptions, and it was like $375,000, which is not nothing, but that's also taking away our entire math curriculum, which I don't think we want to do.
I think you might have taken Power School with you, too.
Yeah, I think so. Probably.
I think we need that one.
We probably do. Well, actually, we looked at this. I was like, listen, you know what I need to teach? I need heat and electricity. I need somebody to decide which kids to put in my room. What else do I need? I needed heat and electricity, somebody to make a schedule for the kids, somebody to write me a paycheck. And I need standards, which is free from the state. And you give me that, I can teach kids. We can't run a district like that, right? So, and then it's legally we have to have other things, and we want to have other things. So, if we have to make cuts, if we are in a situation where the money just doesn't show up and we need to cut things, our biggest priority is preserving the jobs who work with our most vulnerable student populations, hands down. And I need you to hear that our teacher said, I will take a bigger class size before I lose my special educator, before I lose my paraprofessional. Absolutely. They are the ones serving our highest needs kids in the district. There should be no reduction in the number of staff in these roles. Ideally, AHS should be increasing because they've got more kids coming up with a bigger class. And these jobs save us money. If we cut these positions and we end up sending more kids to out-of-district placements, we're going to be in worse shape than we are now. And second, student-facing roles across the district should be a priority to preserve. All reductions in force will hinder student learning, full stop. All reductions in force will hinder student learning, but reducing roles with direct student contact would have the highest negative impact on these students' experiences. So, what are we asking of you here today? First up, honesty, including what we don't know. I get a lot of times people ask me, should I worry? I hear that every time I walk down the hallway. Should I be worried? I'm like, yes. Yes. Yes, we should all be worried. And that includes when we don't know something. Flexibility, moving people between buildings or roles without making lots of hoops that they have to jump through, without making people re-interview if they're moving from one school to another, if they're currently employees in good standing, and giving people a chance to try something new. Maybe you've never been a first grade teacher before, but could be a great first grade teacher. Respect from the community. We recognize that there was an override passed to raise educator salaries, which are still below the regional average. And we appreciate that. And I'm worried that there may be a tax on our teachers, that we're trying to bleed the community dry. That is very much not true. As you can see, we're trying to get more money for you guys, for the kids, for the schools. And I worry that there's going to be a request to increase workload for the sake of the children, and that becomes a really hard personal space where you're, willing to take on more, but also there's only so much you can take on. We ask for advance notice of changes, particularly layoffs, and please, please, please keep us involved in the conversations. Okay? And just a reminder before we go, level service might be the goal, but it's still not fully meeting our needs. There's a strong desire for more ML support, especially at the elementary school. Our elementary ML teachers work across 6 grades. They work with multiple languages, multiple levels of fluency, across multiple buildings. And there's this increased desire with the new curriculum in particular to do more push-in support, and they're having trouble with that with our current staffing levels. More paraprofessional support. We are fulfilling all of the needs of our IEPs at the moment, but like one person going out on medical leave can make that a real tricky balance. So we don't like to be staffed that thin. We have a joint committee on special education caseload that is making recommendations that are supposed to be implemented next year, and we hope that can still happen. And we still need more Tier 2 interventions across grade levels, but particularly in 6th through 8th grade. It is very, very hard for a kid to get an appointment with a guidance counselor these days at the Ottoson Middle School. Our reading staff some of them are overscheduled, some of them are, we're asking special educators to teach some reading classes now. We could really use some more Tier 2 interventions. And we're piloting some new stuff like a writing support class, which would be awesome to be able to expand. So, you have anything? Okay, that's fine. We're standing here with you today. We faced down tough times in Arlington. This is going to be, I have worked here 22 years. This will be my 5th override. So this is not new to me, but it is new to a lot of our staff. So there's some nerves and some fears out there. We hope that we can come together to work for the schools, for the kids, and thank you again for the opportunity to share tonight.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Questions, comments? Mr. Cardin and then Mr. Schlickman.
Oh, I just want to thank you for this presentation. I do think it meets the moment, which is very appropriate. And as you said, the schedule, just I think you probably know this, but the schedule is for a vote at the end of March.
Yes.
So the uncertainty is short term. Mm-hmm. Please tell people to hold tight.
Yeah.
They will know by the end of March
Yep.
which way we're going. So that's an important message. Mm-hmm. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Paul, Mr. Schlickman?
I want to thank you for your presentation. I've always found that the AEA presentation has been very thoughtful and student-centered. And I'm surprised that more districts don't have this kind of relationship where we have a budget presentation coming from the professionals who are working with our children. I'm very appreciative of what you're doing. I liked your message last year a lot better than this year. Context is everything. But again, thank you for what you do. And you know that we're behind each and every teacher in this district because we know each and every teacher in this district is behind our students.
Anyone else? Yeah, I want to echo those words. I think you did meet the moment, and it does sum up where we're at. And I hope people just, don't get too worried until we have a vote, and then we'll know what people think. We'll know where the voters stand. Yes, Dr. Holman.
Thank you. I am always reminded when we do this how much alignment we have between all of our staff. I will just say that I think those of us here in central office understand that our job is to support schools and to make sure that all of you have everything that you need to support kids. And what it takes to run a district is to make sure that you all have what you need in the classroom. And so I appreciate how thorough and thoughtful this was and how much of a partner you've been. And I know we've gone back and forth a lot on how much we spent on this? How much we spent on that? And I'm always willing to go find someone who could figure that out and share that information. I know we're going to have a lot of meetings with staff in the next couple of months. It might be difficult.
Yeah.
But, I have a lot of faith in our ability to have those discussions and to ask people to hold off and to give folks faith that this is a community that stands behind its schools and supports its schools, and so we'll be okay.
My first year in Arlington was 2004, 2005. So I was on the chopping block for that override. And I told people flat out, I was like, you can fire me, but I'm still coming here every day. Like, I'll go get another job at night, but like, I like this place. You can't make me leave. I'm stuck here. You're not going to get rid of me. So I like that I'm hearing that kind of sentiment from our newer staff too. Like, people want to be here and they want to stay and they want to keep working in Arlington schools.
That one passed.
Yeah.
2004 did not.
No.
2005.
2005.
Oh, 2005.
Yes.
I remember the
2003.
2004.
No, three.
The
Three
Romney,
didn't pass.
The
Three.
Romney
Yeah.
override.
Yeah.
Because he cut our local aid 20%.
Yeah.
And we didn't get an override after that. We made some awful cuts. So we are just recovering
Just got back from that, I know.
now. Those elementary librarians we have now, they were cut in that 04 budget year, and we're finally back to full staff. So a defeated override, especially for a system as fragile as ours, causes not just damage for 1 year, damage over the long term.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. We are
Thank you,
45 minutes
guys.
behind schedule, but we're going to catch up. I know
Yes, we are.
Dr.
be
Holman
great.
is going to give a presentation on the budget.
Okay, actually, I'm going to say some quick words, and then I'm going to turn it over to some other folks. Do you want to come up here? So we are going to get started with some, I'm going to tip over a table first. We're going to get started with some budget conversations. This is part one of a two-part conversation that will span 2 years. Tonight in 2025 and the first meeting in 2026. And we are going to talk today just about the FY27 budget process, how we've gone about our initial conversations for development of the FY27 budget, what some of our goals, assumptions, and considerations have been, what the design and timeline is looking like for the development of 2 separate budgets, which we'll talk about. Some processes that we've been undertaking and are still ongoing to interview stakeholders and find out what resources are most critical to our strategic direction that folks tell us from their experiences in the schools, and the workshops that we've been doing with some of our administrators, as well as what is next. So I'm going to get started by just outlining a little bit about our typical budget process and what is different this year, and then I'll be handing it over to Mr. Schweitzer to talk some numbers, and then we will hand it over to Ms. Vreeland, and she'll talk a little bit more about process as well. So this is our typical budget process. Just for context, I've condensed a couple slides from our forum into one here. So it starts here on the left, goes down the arrows, and then follow the big arrow back up to the right-hand side and down. So typically what we would do is departmental budget requests and then presentations to the senior leadership team, to the cabinet team, and then we would give you all that list. And so usually we prioritize or bucket some of the items on it, present it to the school committee. You all weigh in with your priorities. I propose a budget, and then we go see finance committee and town meeting. Our budget process this year is a little different, as we've talked about already this evening. So we got started earlier. We started these conversations, actually we started in June, but we were talking about it as early as September with the administration. We did our launch in October. We've done role-based workshops with different groups of administrators. We've done 9 of those, and those are ongoing. We're going to have a couple more when we come back from the break. In those workshops, we're talking about what our options would be for adjusting staffing models in ways that will least impact the students. And so we're really trying to take a hard look at what constitutes level service, what we know to be the experiences of our students, and what we believe to be the least harmful potential reductions should an override not pass. We are developing no override cut options and approximate savings now, and we're doing the process presentation to the committee today with those reduction options to the school committee January 8th. We'd like to hear from all of you about what some of your priorities might be in sort of assessing what those options are, so that we can bring you a list that meets with those to inform some of your priority development in that first meeting in January. Then we're going to go develop 2 separate budgets and present those and go through those other steps with that override vote happening at the end of March. So at this point, I will turn it over to Mr. Schweitzer. He's going to talk about a few numbers. Go ahead.
Thank you, Superintendent. So following up on the Superintendent's comments on the prior slide about developing 2 separate budgets, my goals here on the next couple of slides are just to kind of provide a little bit more info on what those 2 budgets are, what's funded in those budgets, and our approach to...
Microphone closer.
I guess, I don't know, like, get closer to it?
Oh, where is it?
Get closer.
That one not on?
Fine, let's get closer.
It is on it? Sorry. So this chart that you have here in front of you is a snapshot of the school department's general fund appropriation taken from the long-range planning committee document. These numbers here are based on the current working formula, which is still being finalized by the committee. So that FY27 number is still subject to change. Reviewing this chart at a high level before we get into the next few, no override scenario budget equals level funding. This would mean that FY27 would equal that FY26 number, the $103.6 million budget. On the other hand, a successful override scenario budget would equal a service level budget or a level service budget. And again, that number shown here is still subject to change. I will dig into these terms and scenarios a little bit more on the next slide, but I just wanted to highlight that there. So as we talk about level funded or level service, kind of speaking to that 103 or the 108 number. So now digging deeper into each of these scenarios, if the school department were level funded, it would help balance the current projected deficit on the town's projections. We'd receive the same number of funding. So again, that $103.6 million number from the prior slide, and this is the number that we're working with. So the long-range planning committee continues to review and refine these projections, but that number that we're currently working with to balance the budget, if the override doesn't pass, is that 103.6. So level funding also means that there's no additional monies provided to cover any increases for inflation or any increase in costs. We certainly know that year-over-year costs for things change, and so level funded, presents a scenario where there would be possible reductions. If an override passes, we would move forward with a level service budget with the exact increase amount in FY27 still dependent on that final funding formula. Level service can mean different things to different people, but we're framing level service as meaning that our students would not feel any of the direct impacts of potential reductions that are made in the budget. And again, this is contingent upon a passed override. On this slide here, the FY27 build approach, this is a chart that's going to help frame our internal conversations that we've been having as we've been going about building the budget here. There's best case scenario, which is what we're hoping for, is based on a passed override. And then in the worst case scenario, in case there was a failed override, these are the 2 different budgets that we're planning for. In the best case scenario, we would be striving to provide the same services with a funding appropriation that covers the inflationary growth. It would also require us to be diligent and ensure that we're building a sustainable budget for years to come to minimize that year-over-year growth. And upon getting the final number from the town, any reductions in this best case scenario, again, would try to result not in any impact to the students and families or any reductions in the significant impact of the student experience. And again, we're hopeful for a passed override so we can continue to maintain these level of services that we've been providing where we've seen significant gains in student outcomes. So moving here to the final 2 charts, we just thought it'd be helpful to kind of frame our discussion and give context to what the override vote is voting to maintain and to see where we're currently spending our dollars. So as you can see here, the vast majority of our budget is dedicated to salaries. Our primary delivery of services to our students is from our staff. And so we've presented this chart based on the breakdown of our staff based on bargaining unit. To describe a couple of acronyms here, AEA is the Arlington Education Association. And so when you see the dash A, C, and D, A is for our teachers union or the licensed professional union. C are for the administrative assistants, and D are for the paraprofessionals. We also have some smaller pieces of the pie like facilities or IT. These might be some of the smaller pieces of the pie, but they're the folks that kind of work behind the scenes to help our educators do what they need to do day to day. In total, the salaries as a percentage of our budget currently is 85.5%. Of that 85.5%, 82% are direct student-facing staff. These are our teachers and our paras. 10% are operational salaries, such as our facilities team, custodians, and bus drivers. And then 7.8% represent our leadership and administrative salaries. And then on this final chart, this presents our operations or our non-personnel budget. Again, this is 14.5% of the budget. 41% of that are within our student services department, so this is focusing on our SPED staff, out-of-district tuition, and SPED-related transportation. 32% are those shared core departments like IT, payroll, and facilities. 16% is for core curriculum materials, software, books, and PD. And then the smaller parts of the operations department are for other district-wide departments, almost 3% for athletics and 2% for transportation. So my hope is in reviewing these slides, provide a little bit more context on what our budget currently looks like and what voters would be, looking to maintain when they go to the ballot box in March.
Part of the reason also for reinforcing some of these numbers is to point out that we really can't sustain reductions to operations. We could decide to spend operational dollars differently, but with 85.5, which was not what we were aiming for, that was sort of an end result of some of the bargaining that we had done, and part of why we have frozen hiring in some areas is to make sure that part of why we didn't fill some positions as well was to make sure that we could cover the contracts that we had bargained. So because we're at 85.5% on salaries only, we cannot have that go any higher. We should have it go lower. We should spend more on operations. And we had a pretty significant increase to the operational budgets, even in the FY26 build, precisely because my concern was surrounding the proportion of the budget that was going towards salaries, which we want to aim for more around 82% of the overall budget. So while we really appreciate some of the things folks have identified as a potential options for cost savings and operations, and we agree with a number of those, they would help to offset additional operational costs. It would have to be put towards some of the inflation that we see when it comes to buying furniture, because furniture is many percent more than it used to be, not towards salaries or saving dollars that could be allocated towards salaries. So I just wanted to point that out. So now we are going to hear from Ms. Vreeland, but before we do, I want to explain a little bit about who she is, because she hasn't spoken with all of you yet, and why it is that she's the one speaking with you. So we do have a partnership with Harvard University and their EDLD program, which is their doctoral program for in education, their leadership doctoral program in education. We have, and you all have met, a number of superintendent fellows over the past many years. We've hosted 5 superintendent fellows and 1 superintendent resident. The fellows are in their first year of the EDLD program. They work in a district for 1 or 2 days a week at no cost to the district on projects of interest that add value to the organization. So they come in, they say, I've got a background in this, I'm interested in learning more about how districts operate in these ways. We will hand them a small project and they'll work on some of that, get to know some of the folks in central office. Residents are a little different. This is the first year that we have hosted a resident. I'm happy to have AC on the team. They're in their 3rd year of the program. They're completing a capstone. That is a practice-based dissertation. It requires residents to experience the duties of a superintendency through a focused project over time. They are paid full-time employees. That comes with, and they come into the district with extensive experience in educational leadership. When we were approached about hosting a resident this past year, I said, no, thank you, because of the cost associated with it. And they generously agreed to split the cost of the stipend with us for this year. And we ended our partnership and the subscription costs that for Harvard that went along with our deeper learning partnership with them in order to offset the cost of the resident. And so I know this is awkward because now I'm going to hand off the microphone to her, but we actually talked about this earlier today because we've heard a couple of times about additional bodies in central office that are doing some of this work. And I wanted to point out that what we get in exchange for having the ability to host folks who are learning about leadership in the schools is of great benefit to the district in that we've had 6 folks come and do a lot of work for the organization for well less than we have paid for professional development through Harvard in prior years, and offset by the cost of that professional development in prior years. So AC is going to speak next. She has a lot of experience across early childhood and post-secondary education, was a math teacher, started work in post-secondary, working on graduation rates of first-generation and underrepresented college students. Worked in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina to help launch a new high school and taught ninth grade algebra there. Founded a company called True School that worked with school districts across the country on human-centered design, has a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Colorado Boulder, and in public administration from Harvard Kennedy School, and as is probably obvious at this point, is completing her doctorate in ed leadership at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. So with all of that, AC has been working with us on our budget process this year. And adding a lot of capacity to the office, doing workshops that I don't think we ever could have pulled off on our own. And so is going to talk a little bit about the development process and trying to include as much stakeholder input as possible. It's all yours.
Great, thank you. I think first, just thank you to Dr. Homan, Cabinet, School Committee, the entire district for having a resident and hosting me here. It is an incredible learning experience, and also I don't know how else you would learn how to do this without being in it. So thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to the spring continuing and appreciate all of you. So my primary project has been working on the budget development process with the budget development team. I'm focused on gathering stakeholder input to inform the budget development process. Our goals for the budget build included two that this directly relates to. One is centering budget decisions around our values, and the second is, of course, gathering input from stakeholder groups to define what is core to the work. I would say other objectives briefly, and I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible. Other objectives for the project included helping to iterate and build upon processes and routines by which we build a budget, so making sure that each year we are incorporating different perspectives on how we spend our resources. Capacity building of folks in the district to better understand budget building, and then just some coherence. This is creating a great opportunity to talk to people across roles, departments, understand how they all feel about where our resources go. So just to quickly go through this, I'm going to skip to design and timeline. There are going to be two components of this project. The first is stakeholder interviews that were conducted by different cabinet team members using a set of questions. We aggregated this data. The questions were asked anonymously, and that's going to inform our decision-making, and then a series of workshops that we've led 3, and another will be in January. For the stakeholder interviews, this is very preliminary, so I just wanted to recognize it's primarily staff data right now. We are going to collect more data from community members and families in the coming months. Questions, we asked these 5 questions. The 2 that I think yielded the most sort of like interesting data that I'm working with is simply what is going well in APS that you would like to see continue, and then the 4th, what would worry you the most if APS had to scale back resources. So let's talk about just quickly what we saw in general from the question, the responses to what's going well. And this is going to echo, I think, AEA's presentation. We're hearing similar things. I think first off, it's really exciting to hear people talk about the vision and strategy of the district is really shared. I think people are really on board with that. There's a strong sense of purpose among staff and everyone in the organization that's grounded in what's best for students. I heard a lot about the array of opportunities and choices that are being provided for students in the district, so programs, electives, activities, enrichment opportunities, and especially the deep and wide-ranging supports, especially for focal groups. And then last, I'll just say staff feeling a strong sense of connection and a highly collaborative culture here. Skipping down to what worries people. So also some patterns here that will sound familiar. I think there's deep concern that the services and programs that have led to Arlington's success may be cut, and that the momentum that has been built will be taking a step backwards. So recognizing that Arlington was one of only 13 school districts to achieve those MCAS results that were pre-pandemic, I think all of the things that have gone on that have led to that success, people are worried about that now coming backwards if we cut resources. There's concern that staff will be overloaded and are already feeling at capacity. They're very concerned about where work will go if they lose colleagues. Concern about staff morale suffering, turnover, and the loss of experienced staff. And lastly, and I think this is most important, is that our most vulnerable students will be the ones hardest hit should we lose people. And that services that have enabled a focus on the whole child, including not just academics, but wellness and social emotional supports, would be lost. And that we would compromise the big vision for equity and excellence for students in the district. So, you know, I think everyone is deeply concerned about what will happen ahead. This is also a hypothetical situation right now. I know we're thinking about whether or not the override will pass, but in the context of these concerns, I think these are really important things to consider that you're now seeing in terms of patterns of what we've been discussing. Real quick, the second piece is a series of workshops we're doing. These are with principals, directors, coordinators, and cabinet. I just want to recognize all of the hard work people in the organization have been doing to engage in these very difficult conversations about what we do in the case of cuts. This is a very difficult ask of people to have these both like individually, but especially collectively. And we're asking people to have these conversations in a time of like scarcity versus surplus. So I just want to recognize the tremendous work people are doing to engage with their colleagues and have these difficult conversations. A couple observations, making sure that we're thinking about how each school is different with different students and different needs. So it is hard to make generalizations across this data about what every school might need or what the system might need. And I think really important, this has come up multiple times, schools being very complex, delicate systems. So if we change one aspect of staffing, that can have a domino effect and require different implications for different roles and different staff. So just making sure we're thinking about not just what is the initial change, but what are the implications of that change. So that was sort of the first workshop. We were thinking about identifying the core, what was core to the student experience, and those were some of the takeaways from that workshop. The second one focused on operational budgeting, so much more technical. The big question being how within your operational budget might you allocate your resources for greater efficiency. Again, just technical, kind of building people's capacity and thinking about their budget and finance overall. And I think that was also thinking towards people looking at their budget holistically, including staffing in future years. So great opportunity to build that skill set. And lastly, the third workshop, which we just had with directors and coordinators and cabinet, as well as principals, we're starting to think in more detail about these staffing proposals that might reduce costs. I think some of these things I've already kind of touched on in that workshop. We saw this concern about compromising gains, especially thinking about students in our focal groups and who might be hardest hit. And I think also this short-term thinking on savings might increase costs in the long run. At the same time, I do want to say all of this work is also illuminating all of the great work happening in the district, because essentially I think what people keep saying is we're doing really great things for kids and we don't want that to go away. So just want to make sure that is consistently what is coming up as well in these conversations. All right, what's next? We're going to have one more workshop with cross-role groups. I think this is really important for everyone to know because these conversations have been happening in discrete groups, and it's going to be a great opportunity for everyone to come together and talk about all of the proposals for potential reductions and have input on those proposals. We are going to, Liz, you might want to speak to this part.
Which were?
In workshop 4.
Which one?
Here, I can, on the next slide. Do you want to speak to the proposal, feedback on the proposal options?
So we will be bringing the list of potential reductions for you all to weigh in on and propose and give us some priorities around when we come back on January 8th. on the 7th and 8th, and so this is going to be a really fast timeline turnaround. This will be quick, obviously, because we're meeting with administrators on the 7th and the 8th, and then we will be coming to you in the evening of the 8th. And so you will get a list at some point on Thursday after that second workshop, which we're hoping will not result in any major overhauls, because obviously that would be problematic, but we're going to turn it around swiftly for you all to weigh in on it that evening. And a lot of what we want to gather from everybody when we have this set of workshops is their input on the different scenarios. So, for example, what we've mapped out right now are sort of big bucket, what if we took a look at this area of the district? Class size came up earlier tonight, so I'll use it as an example. What are the different scenarios in which we might increase class size? You could do it in a number of different ways. So here's scenario 1, here's scenario 2, here's scenario 3. One of the questions we're going to ask in this workshop is, what's the impact of that? What happens if we do that? So that you all have both the cost out, how much would that be, and the impact language from across different roles of administrators. And I think what will happen after that is that once we have this discussion, we're going to learn about all of the other impacts that we didn't identify, because people are going to bring those up. At some point in the middle of this same week, we will need to talk with staff, because we don't want to put this list out in the public and talk about it unless we've shown it to staff as well. So we'll do probably some sort of optional all-staff meeting at some point that week too, so that I can share some things about what will be on there, make sure staff have an opportunity to answer any questions. So there are a number of things that will happen the week that we return. This workshop is critical to that, because their input on which reduction scenarios would have the most or least impact might help us whittle it down a little bit so that we're not sort of giving too expansive of a list. We can try to give you something that's a little bit more catered to whatever it is you're hoping to see. And we want to attempt to narrow it so that it meets the bottom line need without being so expansive that it creates a morale challenge or challenges in any of the other areas we've discussed this evening. It is a difficult, it's hard to talk about, mostly because it feels vague at the moment. And we want to keep it that way to an extent until we're having the specific conversation, in an effort not to make people worry too much about their livelihoods or what may happen, because I think it's easy to project what may happen into your thinking.
Yeah, I think just this is finally in summary. I just want to note a couple things based on observations of working here and working in a number of other districts. I think first off, there is a lot of debate and disagreement about where cuts might be made. And I want to note that I think it's the sign of a very healthy organization and healthy system that debate and disagreement is happening openly, honestly, in a collaborative, respectful way. And I just want to acknowledge that I think those are hard conversations that are happening very productively, and I think that's a real sign of a really strong organization. We're learning more and more about how to gather stakeholder input, so these have been, it's been bumpy, right? We're figuring this out, we're learning, and that's continuously improving. This is, I think, contributing to a strong adult learning culture in the district, which I've seen since I've been here, and I think is just getting better and better. And we're seeing things system-wide as a result of these workshops that I think we wouldn't have otherwise seen. Lastly, I just want to say, I think this commitment to stakeholder input is often said, but not genuinely engaged with. So I think it's really amazing to see Arlington's commitment to having stakeholder input really central to the process of a budget. I don't know if I've ever seen a district do a budget build with gathering this much input from the front line, which I think is so critical. So I just want to acknowledge that and say, ultimately, what I'm hearing constantly from people is keeping students at the center and having their voices in the work. So thank you.
So what we are hoping for tonight are three things, and I had hopefully given you an idea of what to be ready for before we talked, so that you could think about this a little bit. We have in mind a few guiding principles in the development of the list that we're working on right now. Definitely prioritizing student-facing roles for preservation and making sure that the students in our focal groups are the last ones we impact are on that list. So you don't have to say though, you can, I mean, say it over and over, but we have those. If there are any other principles that the committee would like us to consider, keeping in mind that the fiscal reality of the reduction scenario, both for FY27 and in future years, should the town not pass an override, it would have to hit all areas of the district. It would need to span all roles, including student-facing positions. So with that in mind, are there other areas the committee, or other principles the committee would like us to use, other sort of criteria you'd like us to consider? I will be writing that up as part of the budget proposals that we bring to the committee for the no override scenario, so that the public understands what guidelines we were using for ourselves when we were looking at these and considering which reductions to make. Are there any areas that you think we should consider for reductions and efficiencies? We've heard from our colleagues in the AEA. We'd love to hear from all of you. We've heard from a number of our administrators. I've spoken with my advisory team, and there are some other stakeholder groups that we've managed to reach in our interviews, and those will be ongoing. I'm doing listening sessions also with families, which I'll talk about in my update. And then finally, how deep should those potential reductions go in that presentation on the 8th for costing out possibilities? And I asked this question for the exact reason that I said a moment ago about how expansive should we be in a list of options for you all to consider and deliberate on. And I say that because the bigger that list, the more people get concerned. The smaller that list, the less latitude you all have to say, what about this, what about that, and to help us move some things around so that we can build a budget. And so the minimum reduction scenarios will add up to the actual number in the current model that I believe we'll talk about in long-range planning is 4.4, somewhere between 4.4 and 4.6 will be that minimum number. For the maximum total reductions, how much room would the committee like is kind of the question. Would you like a $2 million range, a $4 million range? Do you have no idea? That's also an okay answer and perfectly fair. But if the committee has guidance to give us on that front, that would be helpful, because each scenario has a lot of different cost out sort of possibilities. And so we want to make sure we cost out appropriately so that you have what you need. And with that, we would ask you to discuss.
Does anyone want to go first? Because I know you want to leave.
Sorry, yeah, I have to leave in a few minutes. Thank you for all that, very helpful. Guiding principles, we've heard a lot. I mean, minimize impact as much as possible. I think that may mean considering some difficult things, but we should consider them, even closing a school if necessary. As far as the flexibility on the spending, there should be, I think, some choices, given the timing that we're facing, sort of having a general list without numbers, that could have been a different way to go. We could have had a general list without numbers, and then we could have talked about them and then added numbers, but now we're going to have the numbers directly, so we probably need a buffer, of I would say 2 million to be able to move things around. Thanks.
I have a comment.
Sure, please.
I thought the point around, and that was part of the core slide of each school is different. I think that's so important. Our schools don't serve the same groups of students. Those students look very different across particularly elementary schools. So really making sure that, again, we're not walking away from our most vulnerable students that need that extra support, I think is going to be really important.
Ms. Schlickman?
Okay. There's lots of things we can do, but I think that, first of all, the biggest priority is that the cuts must be the action items. We cannot go and scare people with cuts before an override vote, and if it fails, not follow through on them, because that destroys our credibility. I think people have a right to know exactly what we're going to do if we have a failed override, and that's indeed what we're going to do. that there are no givebacks after that. I think that it's important to have a tiered list. The easier, the more difficult, and the extraordinarily painful. I think the things that we really need to be looking at, which are sort of traditional things that districts look at if they're facing a failed override, is school assignment, redistricting the elementary schools, expanding buffer zones, doing what it takes to maximize each classroom. Probably a 4% increase in class size, which would be an average of 1 child per class, and increase in class size minimums for running secondary sections. I think there are discretionary things that we have that we're doing, such as the Bishop and Addison bus, which would be sort of high on my list. But those are the kinds of things we need to be looking at, which would be painful, disruptive, but things that we could live with and wouldn't have a severe long-term impact on the district.
Dr. Alsambi?
So maybe I'm repeating some of what has already been said, but I'd like us to be distributing reductions across the board, so all schools, not just picking out. So maintaining as best possible reasonable class sizes, protecting special education in K to 2 in terms of class size increase, so I would consider them separately. I'd also be looking at the other focal groups, but those 2 groups I think should be pulled out as special. I consider reinstituting some of our fees that we had happily gotten rid of, music, athletics, if necessary. I'd much rather do that than get rid of our athletics program, which other schools have done in similar circumstances in the past. And I would, as part of looking at efficiencies, I would look at potential considerations of central office functions and/or smaller administrative departments, trying to basically make them more efficient or more cost-effective, not in any way impugning anyone's effort. It's just we have to keep our teachers and we have to get the money somewhere. And then if we want to pull all the pennies from things, that's great. I can't name all the things, but, you know, and it is more penny stuff. But.
Ms. Exton?
So while I recognize that we have to, there are going to be positions that are very close to students, I think that we need to start as far away from students as possible. So I think that we need to look at the central office. I think there are some positions and departments there that are nice to have, but I don't think that we need them to run a school district. So I would ask the superintendent to look carefully in central office for places where we can consolidate and reorganize positions. I also think we should look carefully at the budget office for places where we can find efficiencies. I agree it's pennies, but the AEA also had a similar mention around auditing subscriptions and curricular fees, and I think it's important to go through that process. It may not be a lot, but I think it's an important thing to do in a situation like this. I think that we should look at the ratios of service providers and specialists across schools and adjust FTEs across the district to more equitably or equally distribute services. Along those same lines, I would ask that coordinator, director, and leadership positions be carefully examined for places where there can be efficiencies and consolidations made. And then, so the other piece the AEA also mentioned is our enrollment growth right now is at the secondary level, but I don't feel that the ads that we've made in the past have are over what we need there, and so I would hesitate to make too many adjustments or reductions specifically there. I think we really need to look at enrollment and where reductions make sense based on our enrollment right now. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure anything I'm going to say hasn't been said, but I originally, at the top of my list, had class size. I appreciate what Ms. Keys said about what her members said about, like, the SPED so I hadn't really thought about it as a trade-off. Preserving the gains we've made in SPED staffing, I think, is a number one priority. That said, I think, like Dr. Allison Ampe said, particularly the class sizes at the lower grade levels, I guess I would prioritize those in terms of preserving the class sizes we have, and if we have to make adjustments, make them as the grades go up. I would hope that we could look for, like Ms. Exton said, that we can look for efficiencies and with equity considerations across the elementary schools and try to balance maintaining the variety of offerings we give our students, even if that means decreasing frequency and even if that means we have to share positions across schools. We do have a really wide range of size and need levels at our elementary schools, and we can't, that has to be part of what we're paying attention to. This does not mean that I don't value a lot of other things that we have been able to do, but the symbolism of losing the licensed librarians at the elementary school after that just being got back is one that feels painful to me. Again, I don't know if there are efficiencies that we can make when we're looking at how frequency students are getting access and the different sizes of the schools. This sort of circles back to some of the related to SPED concerns. I think we've made some real gains in literacy, and so in terms of interventionists and that kind of support, I think that literacy interventionists are a high priority. And I think that both for the purpose of maintaining trust with the community and our staff, we need to start from the top down. I echo what Ms. Exton said about looking really carefully at central office. Again, it's not impugning. I think we're doing a lot of really, really great things, but some things are nice to haves and some things are must haves. And I think the exercises that look at what we're all calling pennies are still really important exercises because, like, it all adds up. And if finding a bunch of pennies someplace preserves a class size of, 26 versus 25, like that is not without impact. So I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody here doesn't feel deeply, and it's a really, really hard exercise that none of us want to be going through. But when I made my list, I think that pretty much covers it.
So I don't have a lot of new things to say about what's been said so far. I mean, we will be, to clarify, you're going to be proposing that we're going to be adopting two budgets with and without override.
Did you want to go last? Because Mr. Slickman was.
Oh, Mr. Slickman.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You typically do, which is the only reason.
I'm sorry. Mr. Slickman, I'm so sorry.
I just want to provide a counterpoint to an argument that my colleague made. I think reinstituting fees is wrong. It's an equity issue. Reinstituting fees disadvantages low and middle-income students takes away those programs from lower-income students. We proved that when we got rid of the fees and participation went up. I would rather make cuts to athletic programs in programs that are not as well used than push the pain into the lower, the kids who are at more financial risk.
I apologize, Mr. Slick. Usually you're right. Okay, thank you. So, now I go last. Yes. This is a grim conversation, and I would say that I don't feel like we have any nice to haves right now in the schools. I think everything works together to create a district that supports students and is responsible for the gains we've made and the success we've had over the past several years. And so I think it's the first thing to understand. The second thing is that I think we have to have a conversation about the fees because, saying we're not going to have certain sports or we're going to cut out certain extracurriculars is a big discussion. And when you have fees, there were ways for students to get waivers if they couldn't afford the fee. We would have to make sure that's clear to families, and we'd have to implement a good process to make sure students didn't get denied an opportunity. I realize that even with the fee waiver program that we had years ago, it was an impediment to many students, and many families said, let's just not bother with this, we don't have the money. But if this override does not pass, we're going back to a different era in this district. That's a fact. We're going back to a different era with fewer resources, and we have to kind of think about what that era was like. We're in a much better place now, but that era included fees. It didn't include all the staffing that we have now and throughout the district. It didn't include all the assistant principals. It didn't include a lot of things. So part of us has to look at all the things we added and figure out which of those things we must keep. And then some of the things we've added, we're going to have to probably have conversations about doing without them. And one of those, I think, is fees. I don't see how we can have cannot have a conversation at the budget subcommittee and hear about fees, personally. I don't think it's
That was on my list too.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah, I don't like them. I like what we've done. I've loved all the progress we've made. All the kids participating, it's the best thing in the world. Best thing for the kids, for the families, for the culture of the school, it's huge. But I don't know how we don't have a conversation, and we don't get realistic about going back to where we were several years ago. So that's generally the high-level thing. Dr. Holman, did we give you all you need?
That was immensely helpful, thank you. And I will go do the worst homework assignment you all have ever given me.
Well, the world gave it to you.
Yes, it's true.
You don't want to give it.
I know you don't. I know it's not a happily given or received homework assignment. And we will bring back a list. The $2 million is that Mr. Carden had mentioned before he had to go is a very helpful parameter. Did anybody else have thoughts on a bottom line range?
Kirsty, do you?
I think at least 2 million.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit more.
I was aiming 2 to 4.
Because the problem is, like, if you feel like Mr. Schlickman, no fees, then that gets rid of $500,000, right? So,
yeah, I'll consider how many
buffer.
options it also potentially eliminates, because you're right, if we discuss and there's a strong desire to eliminate one of the options that's multiple millions, there really, first of all, there aren't any of those. But that really hinders our ability to maneuver anything else. So I'll keep that in mind too.
I mean, all the fees are actually higher than that, than $500,000. Yeah, so I mean, yeah. Okay. I'm very
Thank
sorry
you very
that we're
much.
at this
No,
point,
thank
but here
you.
we are.
This is
That's the
helpful.
grim
Thank
part
you.
of management. Okay, competency determination, second read. Mr. Schlickman, did you want to speak to this?
We had a first read on IKFE as the last meeting. There's a typo in the agenda. So I would move adoption of IKFE, which is aligned to what we voted in the high school course of study.
And nothing has changed.
May I have a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Gittleson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I vote yes, it's a unanimous vote. Okay, now we move on to the superintendent's evaluation. So, there's all these different rules about open meeting rules and educator evaluation. Basically, if you want to say anything, you can, but then you've got to read everything you've written and say more and all that other stuff.
You can,
What is it?
okay. If you
I
want
can't
to
find
say.
the site.
This has been.
It's old. Anyway, what it is, if you want to say anything, it has to be what you have already written
Right.
down.
Right.
You don't have to read all of it,
Okay.
but you can't vary from what you've already
Okay,
written.
that's what I was trying to say. You said it more clearly than I intended, than I tried to say it. Okay, so I'm going to read the results. So this is the screwiest evaluation form I've ever seen. You're supposed to start from the back, go to the front.
Really hard to follow.
Yeah, so, it's a mess, but okay. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education came up with it, and we're following the law, or the rules. So, first, it's professional practice. There are, the options are did not meet, some progress, significant progress, met, exceeded. 4 members of the committee selected significant progress, 2 selected met, so therefore the evaluation is significant progress. Student learning goal, 1 indicated significant progress, 5 selected met, and so therefore the score is met. District improvement, 3 significant progress, 3 met. I don't know what to do about a tie. I'm going to figure it out when we submit the thing. Assess performance on standards, instructional leadership, 3 proficient, 3 exemplary. Management and operations, 4 proficient, 2 exemplary, therefore the score is proficient. Family and community engagement, 5 proficient, 1 exemplary, therefore the score is proficient. Professional culture, 4 proficient, 2 exemplary, therefore the score is proficient. Overall summative performance, 5 proficient, 1 exemplary, therefore the score is proficient. Okay. Then under student learning goal, there were 5 met, 1 significant progress, therefore it's met. Professional practice goal, did I redo these?
Yeah, you did, right,
I
it's also the forward and back.
Yeah, or the
That was the
forward.
back to move forward.
Oh, my
So I think
God.
you've got it all.
I think I got it all.
You got it.
Yeah, I got it all. And for the people looking at it online, it is color-coded. Thank you very much, Ms. Diggins. And we'll figure out what to send to the state, given the numbers. Anybody want to make a comment?
All you have to do is give the final evaluation, so proficient. That's the only number you have to worry about. You don't have to
That's what we
give
submit to the
anything else.
Oh, that was, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
We might submit on the 4 ratings too. I need to check with Nora.
I don't think you have to.
We have to put
You
it
may,
in for the
you may
teachers.
be able to, but the only
Yeah.
thing you have to is proficient or not.
Okay.
good, so I don't have any more work to do on this. That's.
I think that's what I heard.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, we move on. Next is the superintendent's report. Go ahead, Dr. Holman.
Okay, I will do my best to make this quick. I do have a number of updates too.
Yeah.
All right. There are concerts. 2 of you went to one this evening. I heard it was lovely. And this is from Tuesday's Winter Choral Concert. We had 320 singers filling the auditorium. They received a standing ovation. We are also doing a lot of instructional rounds and student work protocols, in addition to having a lot of conversations about budget. As an administrative team, we're also still trying to focus on instruction. This is 2 pictures, one from some of the learning that our K-5 principals are doing to use student work protocols to talk about standards and how they sort of do a sort and talk about what the standard says and how they know the student work is meeting that. This is a practice that they're taking back into ACE blocks and planning blocks with teachers. Also, they're hosting rounds across the district, and those have been a lot of fun this fall. We also had some exciting news last week that Audison Middle School has entered the eligibility period, or actually hasn't yet, they will in March, in the Massachusetts School Building Authority's core program. The MSBA is a program that reimburses communities for about half of the design and construction cost of needed school building projects for a community. The Arlington High School was completed with the MSBA in partnership with them, and acceptance is a huge win because it offsets significant short and long-term costs. Part of the reason why we open windows when it's hot in a room is not because we like to lose pennies out the window, but because we have failing HVAC systems, and these pneumatic systems are not fixable very easily. It takes a lot of personnel work to address the issue. We will often address the issue and then have it fail again almost immediately. And so rebuilding this building is very important for us to do because of the aging systems, the aging infrastructure, the lack of accessibility, and we really enjoyed the cheer we got from Audison staff when we announced this last week or the week before that. So there are just a few pictures from the statement of interest there on the slide. A little bit about what this means. We are in the eligibility period, which means we need to meet these requirements that are listed in this grid right here. If we were to successfully complete those eligibility requirements, we would be eligible to receive an invitation into the feasibility study phase around this time in next year. Feasibility involves us in using MSBA-specific procurement processes to figure out who we would work with for a proposed project as we advance through the process, and then there are a bunch of future phases as well. So all that to say, this is a long process. Decisions have not been made yet. We are going to move through each stage one by one, make sure that we fulfill the requirements of the eligibility period first. Part of that will be discussions about what kind of enrollment we're looking for in the new school, and so we will need to be engaging the community pretty soon to talk with them about what grade configuration we might want to engage in, and we'll also need to put together a building committee before too long as well, by May 1st. So this is the timeline. I'm happy to sort of outline this in a longer presentation at some point for the committee when we head into January, but I wanted to make sure that the community could see our timeline and some of the requirements. We are hosting FY27 budget forums with the joint Community Relations Subcommittee and Budget Subcommittee. We had our first one on the 10th of December, focused on an overview of financing and current expenses. We have our second forum on the 14th of January and our third on the 27th. We do have a new page on the website it's got a button on the front page right here. It has the budget updates, any budget updates that we want to announce, the slides from the first forum, the forum recording, and we'll post any subsequent recordings, information, FAQs. We're actually working on an FAQ right now up on that page as soon as it's available. I will also be holding listening sessions for all stakeholders. Anyone can join me, students, staff, families, anybody is welcome to join these. You can sign up using the QR code right here, and we'll be sending an announcement out also in the newsletter that's heading out to families tomorrow. The sessions are available at various times and formats in January. These are the same interviews we've been doing with stakeholders and staff here in the district. Same set of questions that AC was presenting on earlier tonight. They're focused on understanding what resources are most critical to student success, and those stories, those experiences that we hear from families and students is helping to inform some of the decisions that we need to make in some of our future planning. So I look forward to talking with a number of people in January as we're working on these two budget scenarios. I did want to address questions that have come about enrollment increases at AHS and monotony enrollment questions. Mr. Cardin was the one who asked about AHS, so I'll make sure I send this to him separately as well, and we can discuss at a later date if needed. There were questions about what the new to APS enrollments, where they're coming from, particularly at the high school. They've been increasing at grade 9 over the past several years, and then last year we had a bump at grades 10 and 12 for returning students, so students who were coming back to APS, who were previously APS students. It's mostly been grade 9, but for returning students, we had that spike in grade 10 and 12 as well. The graph to the right, this one right here, shows new and returning students and what the family reports their last school placement was. So what you see in these graphs is an increasing proportionality of students joining AHS from private schools compared to public schools. So the red is the public school percentage, over the past multiple years for both new and returning students to the high school. And then the blue is students coming from private schools. The red is from public schools. Does that make sense?
So those are, like, they were at other public schools?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that'd be
other
like
towns,
that's
other-
likely a move in.
Okay.
Okay. Like they maybe moved out, moved back in if they're returning, or they moved in for the first
Where
time.
does Minuteman count?
It is not, it would be a public, that would be
Okay.
counted in public in this calculation.
Okay.
Yep.
Charter schools would be public. What about a homeschool coming back in?
I'm not sure if she included that,
Okay.
so I can ask her how she, Nora Manna had figured this out for me, so I'd have to ask. So I will find out how some of those other designations that we had in the other report that I've given you all
Yeah,
are included in this, but I know Minuteman would be public because it's public.
but a lot of people come in from private schools.
Yeah, we have an increasing proportion definitely coming from private schools. And I can definitely bring more analysis back in the spring for further discussion because she did a ton of digging on this question and we have lots of graphs. So if there's more interested in this, we can bring even her back and have her talk about this. There were also some questions about monatomy, and Ms. Elmer, I know that I don't know if you're prepared to speak to this, I did not warn you this was on here, but I did want to give you an update while she's here in case there are additional questions. One of the questions has been, like, we added a classroom, we didn't see a big shift in enrollment. So if you look at the regulations, it explicitly states for public preschool integrated programs that the class size can't exceed 20 with one teacher and one aide for classes with no more than 5 students with disabilities. But if the number of students with disabilities is 6 or 7, and that's every single one of our classrooms has that number, the class size may not exceed 15 students with one teacher and one aide, and the regulation does not distinguish between having 1 or 2 aides. It's not, that regulation, that requirement does not change if you shift that staffing model. So due to sort of level of need, and I would say unanticipated, it's not necessarily that it's unanticipated, it's just that it's hard to guess how many students are going to qualify to be in integrated pre-K in a year. We have needed to get a waiver for that requirement for the many years. We're trying to stay within the requirement this year. We expect to reach 100 to 105 enrollments, which would bring us very much in line with prior years. So this is this year. This is prior years. We happen to have an interesting enrollment trend last year where we had more students right away, and it didn't grow in the same way last year. And so we're in keeping with past enrollment trends. This red bar is the one that will go up. The blue really can't. And the additional classroom is allowing us to meet that requirement without reducing MPS enrollments and requiring us to pursue the waivers. Is there anything else you want to say about this, Allison? Did I say it all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't prepared.
No, I wasn't asking you to speak to it necessarily, but this confuses me, so.
Yeah, I guess I wish we had heard this way back when we were planning the high school. Because we thought we would be able to have more students than what it seems like we're having. And also, the numbers just are weird, but okay. I mean, not our numbers, but the difference between if you do it if the numbers skew this way, you can do it there. And
15 and 5 versus the 7 and 8.
Yeah, I mean, you give totally different inclusion, totally different inclusion.
Yeah, we agree.
Ratios, yeah. So anyway, I'm just, okay, thank you for finding this out. This has been bugging me. And I understand now, but like I said, I wish we had known this back in the.
And we have gotten the waiver, and we don't like to be outside of what the law says. And I think it's a little silly that we have an additional aid and that doesn't change this math at all, frankly.
No, well, I'm also concerned that you're setting up something which is less inclusive, right? I mean, you have to. I mean, if you have, you see, you're not allowed to have more general ed kids to make it more inclusive.
Well, you can, but you then would have fewer students with disabilities in those classes. So generally, I think, so some communities, like Melrose has a very large early childhood program. They have classes that actually don't have students with disabilities in them. They just offer pre-K classes. So in larger districts, that 20 and 5, I think, is why it's there. In a district like ours, where we primarily have the preschool to serve our special ed students, right?
Right.
So we need to be able to put more special ed students, which then reduces.
Right, but that, my
number.
point is that for those special education students, they are in a less inclusive setting because we are limited by law on how many general education students can be in that classroom, right? So, I mean.
It does not make a lot of sense to me that you can have 20 and 5, but not 20 and 6 or 7, considering that we have 20 and 6 or 7 in lots of other levels across the district.
Right.
That's.
Yeah, it's very strange. Okay.
All right, Mr. Schlickman?
So we're also playing a game here in which we're trying to anticipate students who are going to turn 3 years old and then at that point qualify for services.
Yes.
Right, and we find out about students generally 6 months prior. So that's when we get the referrals from early intervention, 6 months in advance of your 3rd birthday. So, I mean, we are able, so we know who in the next 6 months we are going to be evaluating. And generally, they are not, EI used to be able to provide you more information. They are no longer allowed to, for, I think, probably for obvious reasons, that you can't just give detailed information about students who are not yet our students. So, I mean, but we have a general sense of who is coming up for that next 6-month period. As Dr. Homan's pointing out, our numbers aren't overall, like we know to expect over the year. We generally add anywhere from 20 to 30 kids over the course of the year. That's stayed relatively consistent when we look at things, but yes.
So at this point,
have
we
the census.
pretty much know how many we're going to get between now and June.
Right.
So we can then backfill the regular ed seats.
So the issue, though, is that general ed students don't start after September, the first of the year, because, so it's not a rolling admissions for general ed students.
Okay.
All right. You
And
want
that's
to go
all.
to the last slide?
Yep. Your enrollments are included in your materials.
No update, okay, no update on, okay.
On what? Oh, wait.
A few
Sorry,
25
no. I've got one more slide.
I thought you did, yeah.
Sorry, I do. Forgot about this. We are ending 2025, so I just wanted to share a couple highlights. First of all, I had to start with couldn't bury the lead again. Mr. Schlickman gave me a hard time about that last time. So we were recognized by DESE for being the largest district this year to surpass pre-pandemic outcomes. We have held a lot of new opportunities for families to learn about Arlington through registration and enrollment, budgeting, volunteering, lots of different opportunities for them to learn more, and lots of new forums that we've been holding. You heard about several of them tonight. We've had expanded opportunities for engagement with families in our classrooms through math mornings, showcases of student work, going to concerts, lots of different events in the evenings, athletic events. We have outstanding performances for sold-out athletic and performing arts audiences all year long. We have over 100 new internships for our Arlington High School students. We've expanded options for accessing advanced coursework at AHS. We talked about that tonight. We have a brand new town and district-wide school safety program that we've launched this year. We have bargained collaboratively 6 new contracts with our different units. We have been accepted into 2 MSBA grant programs in 2025. We have achieved 1 School of Recognition in the district. We have won 1 turkey toss championship, just so that we make sure that we name all of our successes here. And just as some icing on the cake, earlier this afternoon we found out that AHS has been certified as LEED Platinum. It is one of only 5 schools in the state with that designation, and that is really, really awesome and exciting.
Yay. Very
So
exciting.
it's been a good year. We're hoping 2026 is even better, and I just wanted to thank all of you for your support and work for your community. We know there's a lot more of it ahead, but we're doing good things with the resources we have, so we just hope we can keep doing that. And now I'm done. Sorry.
Great, thank you very much, congratulations. You did a lot of work on on a lot of this, and you led all of it, and you did all the work on the OMS application, so congratulations. I joked to the MSBA, I thought I was joking to the MSBA people when they were here for our dedication that we're ready for the next one. And I just thought that was just a filler kind of throwaway line, but here we are. Okay.
Just on that point, it is very, very rare for a school to be brought in on the first submission.
Yeah. I'm not crediting my comment to that. I just want to, it was Dr. Holman's, that's all. Okay, so we're at the consent agenda time, folks. We're cruising along. We're doing okay. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the item will be considered in its normal sequence. School committee draft minutes, meeting minutes, December 4th, 2025, warrant number 26141, dated December 9th, 2025, for $603,313.23. Model Congress overnight trip, February 19 to 22, 2026. Motion by Ms. Exton, good move. Second by Ms. Sadat, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It is, I vote yes, it's approved. Subcommittee liaison reports, announcements, budget.
So budget met on Monday, and we discussed the upcoming budget presentation, which you heard and you participated in, and that's what we helped decide.
Thank you very much. Community Relations, Ms. Gittleson.
We have a meeting scheduled for February 5th.
Curriculum Instruction Assessment Accountability, Ms. Exton.
We have a meeting on Tuesday, January 6th, regarding the math task force. And, yeah, no, that's what.
We haven't talked about math in a long time. I'm so glad that's come up again. Facilities, we're talking, the superintendent and I, about meeting sometime in next year. Policies and procedures, Mr. Schlickman?
We need to schedule a meeting.
Arlington High School Building Committee, all things are moving forward. Liaison, any liaison reports? Announcements? Future agenda items? Do we have an executive session?
No.
Oh, did you just,
No.
you just touched your glasses? Just touch your glasses, okay, that's where we're at. That's how we're at 10 of 10.
Motion to
Please.
adjourn?
Yeah.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.